Welcome into the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Good show ahead today, folks. Got some great stuff ahead. Jessica Freeberger will be in with Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals in just a bit. But first, interesting case today. Karen Read and the murder trials of Karen Read. This is one of those cases that stretches the lexicon of true crime. And I know it's one of those hot cases that people love to dig into. And there's something about the female killer. I'll put that in air quotes. You can see me on video doing the air quotes. You can hear it over the air. And there's something about the female killer that draws people in, and they want to know more about female killers. And this, of course, takes place in the Boston area. My guest today has written a book, an explosive murder trial of the decade type book. And boy, has he written a good one. It's called Storm of Suspicion. The Trials of the Decade is explained by Court TV expert Kevin Lenihan, who is my guest today. And it is detailed, folks. And not only that, not only is it a detailed breakdown of this case, but Kevin's also done a wonderful job of stacking it up against different cases and giving you a breakdown of exactly how this case may have been bumbled, which is wonderful. He's looked at it from both sides. He's broken it down. And Kevin really has taken this case and examined it from beginning to end and done a masterful job at that. Let me tell you a little bit about Kevin before we bring him in. Kevin is a screenwriter and author, and he operates the YouTube channel Yellow Cottage Tales, which, by the way, you have to check out. We have a link in the description of this program, and has appeared in documentaries, podcasts, and, of course, on Court TV. His work has been narrated in multiple languages. He's a former pub owner. He can probably still make a heck of a Bloody Mary that'll knock your socks off. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome him in to the first time to True Crime Tuesday, Kevin Lenihan. Kevin, thank you so much for being on.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for having me. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you. By the way, kudos for a book that, by the way, just brings you right in. And not only that, but you give us counterweights to balance throughout the entire book of, by the way, we're going to take you out of this case for a second. I want to give you something like the Lizzie Borden case to kind of compare and contrast here. Okay. And then I'm going to take you in and I'm going to bring you to another case here, and let's compare and contrast this counterpoint of the case. And you give me counterweights to kind of say, okay, here's this point and I'm going to compare it to this. So you can see exactly why this case matters and why this case is so controversial. And there's conspiracy theories in this case too, which we'll get to a little bit later in the program. And why there's so much fire behind this case. That's the only way I can put this, Kevin, fire behind this case. But I want you to tell me in your own words why there's so much controversy behind this Karen Read murder trial.
Well, for one thing about this case is that, like no other case that I've seen, it seems like every couple of days something really unique emerges. So most recently, we learned that we're in the jury selection stage for the second trial. So there was a mistrial in the first trial. The jury was not able to reach a decision. Well, one of the jurors who became selected as an alt juror has now joined the defense team. She happens to be a lawyer.
Really?
And so she's just like a real estate lawyer or something like that, but she has joined the defense team. So there's just something strange that happens all the time. Another unique, these come up all the time. But in this case, so Karen Read, she drops off her boyfriend at a house 34 Fairview. Her boyfriend is a Boston cop. The house is owned by another Boston cop. And this is in the Boston suburb of Canton, Massachusetts. And so they're all out as friends drinking downtown on the eve of a historic blizzard. And they get invited to an after-hours party at this house. It's a small get-together. And so Karen drives John O'Keefe, who is the victim here, and it's her boyfriend for a couple of years, and drops him off. Now, in her version of the story, he goes into the house. And she now is claiming that he was beat up inside the house and intentionally dragged out alive to die on the lawn outside, on their own lawn. The state is saying that she struck him at high speed in reverse, 24 miles an hour, and left him to die at the scene. Now, it's also, I believe that the evidence is overwhelming that she did strike him. But the evidence that she knew she did is not clear at all. And her actions are mixed after that. But one of the strange things that happened in this case, she strikes him about 12:30, a little bit after that. Mm-hmm. And she goes back to, I'm going to call it home, but it's really his house. She doesn't officially live there, but she's staying there most nights. He's raising his nephew and niece. His sister had died tragically of cancer.
Okay.
So she goes home to the house. The nephew, 10-year-old, is at a sleepover, but the niece, 14 years old, is there. She leaves several calls on John's voicemail. Then she goes to sleep on the couch. She wakes up at 4:30, and for some reason now she is sure that something has happened to John. She's hysterical. She wakes up the niece. She calls a couple other people that become later prominent in the story. So two of them are Jen McCabe and Kerry Roberts, and they end up meeting at about 5:30 to go out searching for John in the blizzard. All right. Now, when they arrive at 34 Fairview, Karen's in the back seat. Kerry is driving and Jen's in the front. There's about 4 or 5 inches of snow on the ground. It's an hour before sunrise. It's dark and it's snowing hard. And all of a sudden, now Karen, as they're getting to the house, she sends a call to John. She's, still looking for him, right? And that's when she notices what she somehow knows is John lying buried in the snow on the front lawn. She goes, "Stop, there he is, there he is." The driver looks out and just sees a mound of snow and doesn't fully stop. So Karen throws her phone down on the back seat with the call still sending. And as she jumps out of the car, she kind of falls because the car's still moving a little, then she runs over. Finally, the women inside see what she's doing. They call 911. Well, that phone sitting on the back seat, that call goes to John's voicemail, and the next 5 minutes of what happens is recorded on his voicemail, including the 911 call. And, there's no reason to think that Karen did this on purpose. It's just one of those never-ending strange things that pop up in this whole case, and they keep coming up.
They do keep coming up, don't they? And we're going to talk about some of those things that are just bizarre. And I'm trying to remember what you call it. It's YCT, isn't it? It's
Yellow Cottage Tales.
Yeah. Well, Yellow Cottage Tales, but there's what do you call the syndrome? It's something about not
the rules of thumb, or
it's not being a genius.
Oh yeah. So part of this case, Tim, is part, and this is outlined in the book, is, I'm not former law enforcement. Mm-hmm. I'm not a former lawyer, but even if you are former law enforcement, chances are you've never done an autopsy. Mm-hmm. Chances are you probably are not a forensic data specialist. So most of us in the public, including law enforcement, are pretty ignorant about a great many things that go on in an investigation like this. And so we have to start from that point of view and realize that we have a lot to learn. We have to understand things like a defense team. They're not automatically lying, but their job is not to get to the truth. Their job is to get their client off. And so part of that is that they're going to try to create doubt. And they're going to try to create doubt by trying to present things to us as odd, as suspicious. And a lot of that is basically them manufacturing something that once you wait for the explanation, it turns out to be pretty ordinary. And so I'm going through this process of learning these things, and as we go through it, and just knowing, on the one hand, most of this stuff I don't know. I've never done an autopsy, right? On the other hand, I know to be a little bit skeptical about both sides, but certainly about things that are reported by defense attorneys. And so I want to sit, and I know the prosecution cannot hold a press conference and explain things to you in the same way that a defense can. The rules are much stricter on them. So a lot of times you have to wait for the trial to get those kind of explanations. And so while I was going through this process, I started applying general insights that I had that came from other cases that I had looked into, including Lizzie Borden or the Delphi murders, or, different ones. And I've come up with these series of general observations. And one of them was, I consider this my golden rule. There are no geniuses. Yeah. And there really are. And the corollary to that is there are no idiots.
Right. Right.
There are geniuses and idiots in life. The geniuses work for NASA, or they work for the super collider or something like that.
Yeah.
But even I'm fascinated with cases where it's a doctor that has killed his wife or his girlfriend. And so there's a very, very intelligent person. But when you look at those cases, you don't see geniuses covering up the crime. So if you have a theory about a case, and we all, as true crime people, right, we're looking at the evidence and we're trying to put together theories on what might have happened. If your theory requires the existence of a genius acting within that crime, maybe consider starting over, because that's extremely unlikely. There's not going to be a genius criminal. There's no Hannibal Lecter. That's TV. That's movies. There's probably not going to be a genius investigator either. It's just regular people in these trying to do their best, whether it's as criminals or as cops, under difficult circumstances.
That's an excellent rule of thumb. I mean, you know, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. There is no one I shouldn't say there's no one. It's very rare to have someone of extreme intelligence doing these crimes.
Yeah.
And if there is, it's an anomaly, isn't it? I mean, to have someone of extreme intelligence decide that they're going to turn to a life of crime, because chances are they're excelling at the game of life, like you said, and they're doing something where they're making an extreme amount of money and don't need to lower themselves to commit a crime in order to make money.
Or you have a really intelligent person like a doctor that gets into a situation that he never anticipated, she never anticipated. And so now they're under stress and they're acting in a way that might even be a little bit of impulsive. And so they're not going to make good decisions. And even famous serial killers like, say, Ted Bundy, who is, a very intelligent guy, but his crimes were not very intelligent because he was driven by impulses and things like that. So the crimes weren't carefully planned. So I just think it's, if your theory, because we're all theorizing these things, right? We look at a certain case and we float out different theories. But if your theory requires, so in the Karen Reed case, there is someone who the defense tried to turn into this super unlikely arch villain. Her name is Jen McCabe. Now she has no criminal history. She's a soccer mom. She's got 4 daughters. She was an elementary school teacher. The least likely person you could ever expect to be a criminal mastermind, and she's not a criminal mastermind. But they've tried to turn her into this. So, for instance, they've got her in the like when Karen Reed calls her at 5 a.m. worried about John and saying something's happened to him. She takes the call, and she goes searching with Karen Reed to look for John. Now, in the defense theory, this Jen McCabe already knew that the real killers were planning to put John O'Keefe out to die on the lawn. Now, if that's the case, I'm thinking she's never going to take that call that comes from Karen Reed.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to go, the last thing you want to do is go to that crime scene, right?
Right.
Especially if you're somehow involved in it. But in their kind of feverish minds, not only does she take that call and go with Karen, but she's kind of like the Karen whisperer, kind of like Hannibal Lecter with that in the first movie with Miggs in jail, and he talked him into swallowing his tongue. Jen McCabe is whispering to Karen Reed ideas that will make Karen say at the scene, I did it, I hit him. Because there are multiple people who heard her say that. So, but what's the explanation? Somehow this dastardly arch criminal genius, Jen McCabe, former elementary school teacher, convinced Karen in that moment that she did it.
That's amazing. It would take a high level of psychological degrees. I mean, you'd have to be probably a master's in psychology to be able to manipulate the mind at a time of crisis and be able to keep a cool head in order to twist someone's mind to get them to admit to something that they didn't do. Right? Wouldn't you think?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it requires a level of genius that you probably never find in any criminal case, and certainly not with someone that has no criminal history. So it'd be one thing if she had been in a gang for years and spent her whole life scheming, and she was part of the mafia or something like that. This is another part. So the defense in the trial. And
Kevin, if I can ask you real quick, just to add to that point, isn't Karen Reed like a 43-year-old professor?
Yeah, she's an assistant professor. She worked for Fidelity Investments for most of her life. She's very intelligent, very educated. Her father was the dean of Bentley Business School, and but again, she's not a genius either. She's done in a way, she's done a masterful job of manipulating this kind of crowd frenzy, but I don't think it was a plan. I think she's just exploiting opportunities as they develop. But here's an example.
But probably not someone that Jen McCabe could twist her mind around and make her think that.
Right.
Okay,
Good
so
point.
that was the point I was trying to get. But continue on what you were going to say about Karen.
Right. Unless Jen McCabe is Hannibal Lecter, then she really is that. But no. So Karen, people think she's the evil genius behind manufacturing all this, and it was all some elaborate plan. At least in terms of creating this false conspiracy theory. But so Karen, the one thing that people have to remember about this case is that it's an either or, and there's no middle ground. And the either or is that either Karen's Lexus struck John O'Keefe, or she's framed and all this evidence is manufactured. There's not a middle possibility, like for instance, that somebody else struck John, another hit and run, because Karen's taillight pieces were found in a debris pattern right near on the street, right near where John was found.
Okay.
And those pieces were reassembled and presented in court as a perfect match for what was missing off her taillight. There's a lot of other evidence, but just looking at that right there, you're like, okay, so unless somebody got to that vehicle, pried those pieces off, and planted them at the scene, then her Lexus did it, right? There's not really a middle area. So Karen, about a year after she was charged, or maybe a year and a half, she leaked to Court TV a video when she's pulling out at 5:08 in the morning. It's snowing hard. There's a couple inches of snow on the ground, and she's going out to look for John. She's leaving out of the garage. John's Ford Traverse is parked in the back of the driveway, and she backs into it with the exact same taillight that was broken and missing pieces, the taillight that she struck John with. And now she just nudges it, but she put that out there in order to suggest that that's how her taillight was broken. That was when she backed into John's Traverse to go out to look. And so sometime after they had released that, she's doing a recorded interview with Boston Magazine reporter Gretchen Voss, and with it present in the room are all three of her lawyers, including world famous Alan Jackson. And she amazingly tells something that was a huge mistake that shows that they're not geniuses and they didn't even understand their own theory. So Alan Jackson would present in the closing arguments in the first trial an image of that Karen's Lexus pulling out in that driveway, and he said, look at from behind, this taillight is undamaged. If at the most is a crack, but you can see that this is undamaged. So therefore, later on, somebody must have damaged it in order to plant those pieces. But a year before that, like I said, in this interview, Karen Reed tells Gretchen Voss that when she, at 5:45, when she showed Kerry Roberts and Jen McCabe, as they were leaving to go out to look for John, they had parked her vehicle at John's driveway. And they knew it was broken, so she examined it with them. And she vividly describes that it is missing pieces, bulbs exposed, and to the point where she's worried that it might affect the function of her vehicle. And amazingly, she says that she pulled out a piece of taillight and dropped it there in the driveway. But yet a year later, in the closing arguments, they try to say that at that time it was only cracked. So at the time when she made this statement to Gretchen Voss, they didn't even understand the importance to their theory of showing that the taillight was not missing pieces early on. And the reason she told that story to Gretchen Voss was the state police days later searched John's driveway and they didn't find any taillight pieces. Of course, there had been a big storm and the driveway was snowblowed. So it's not really surprising if it's true that she did drop a piece there. But she was trying to tell that story to show that the state police lied when they said they didn't find anything. But she really screwed herself, because that, in her own words, that establishes now that taillight was missing pieces just at that early time, just a few hours after the accident, and before John was found, and before the state police were even called, before any authorities were called. So she's no genius either.
No, there are no geniuses anywhere in any of these scenarios. That's for sure. Well, I tell you what, Kevin, we're going to take our break right here. When we come back, we've got a little bit more to dive into, including the fact that there's no geniuses on the police side either. There's a bit of a collection issue that happens by the police on scene when they find John. We'll talk about that when we get back. We also want to talk a little bit about the first trial, and we want to talk about some witness tampering and a man by the name of Turtle Boy. We'll find out about Turtle Boy and a little bit about the chaos around the trial. We'll talk about that. The name of the book is Storm of Suspicion, the Karen Read Murder Trials, the Trials of the Decade, as examined by Court TV expert Kevin Lenihan, who is my guest today. Folks, we've got a link to it in the description of this program. It's out by Wild Blue Press. It is a fascinating book. You're going to want to read this book as Kevin takes us from beginning to end here and tells us exactly what is going on with this trial and why it is such a firestorm. And I tell you, again, it's fascinating. And Kevin kind of gives us those counterbalances throughout to let us know exactly why everything in this case is so shocking, why it's so topsy-turvy, and just how things get fumbled and why there's a conspiracy theory behind this. It really is fascinating, folks, how you can take something which may seem like it could be open and shut and blow it wide open. When we come back, more with Kevin about the Karen Read murder trials and why it got bumbled on the police's side of things. Next, here on True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. My guest is Kevin Lenihan. He's written a book called Storm of Suspicion, the Trials of the Decade, as examined by, of course, Court TV expert Kevin Lenihan. Kevin, before we took the break, we were talking a little bit about how things are getting bumbled. And, of course, it got bumbled, as you mentioned, before the break by Karen Read's own defense team in an interview as she was sitting down and talking about the status of the taillight and whether or not she hit John O'Keefe, the deceased or decedent in question. Now let's talk a little bit about what exactly happened at the scene once they found John O'Keefe dead. There's the questionable, I don't want to say antics, but I'm going to use the word antics by the police when they showed up on the scene and exactly how they collected evidence and how they sorted things out. Take us through a little bit of what the police did when they got there as to trying to figure out what exactly happened to John, because John's body was not in good shape when they found him.
Right. John was not breathing and his body temperature was 81 degrees. So they knew that there was pretty long odds against him surviving when he left in the ambulance. And so I think he was gone from the scene by about 6:20 a.m., 6:25. And the first responders were there, but more Canton police, senior officers showed up. Actually, a Sergeant Lank, who is now a detective, was there pretty early. And Jen McCabe, so one thing I didn't have mentioned earlier, she was at that after hours in that house the night before. Well, it's her sister that lives there with her sister's husband, Brian Albert, the other Boston cop. So Jen had, from the scene, called the house a few times. She called her sister and she called her brother-in-law, and they didn't wake up. So she, with the police there, and with their permission, presumably, she walked up to the house, and the door was unlocked. So she went inside, went up to the second floor bedroom, and woke up her sister and brother-in-law and told them what had happened. And so they got dressed, and by the time the homeowners were dressed and coming down the stairs, Sergeant Lank was already inside the house. Now, I'm assuming, I don't think he trespassed in. I think that Jen probably came back downstairs and let him in.
Okay.
But it certainly wouldn't have seemed to Lank like these people were trying to stop him from coming in the house.
Sure.
Now, this is a small town thing too. So Lank knows Brian Albert. They went to the same high school. A lot of these people all know each other. Also, Brian Albert's brother is on the Canton police force. He's a detective on the Canton police force. So there are connections there. Mm-hmm. But Lank described his relationship with Brian Albert as civil. So they're not friends, but there's a professional connection there. Now, he also testified that it was clear to him that the Alberts had just woke up, particularly Brian, when they had come down. Brian had spent the day before, started out in New York at a funeral for a couple of fallen police officers. Long day, traveled back to here, drank at night, went to bed, after multiple drinks, sometime after 2 a.m. So you can understand why now it's a little after 6. He's tired.
Yeah.
So people have said, why didn't the police ask for permission to search the house? John was found outside, looking at least to non-medical eyes that he had been in a fight. But early on, everybody at the house was saying he never came in the house. So he probably had a thin case for probable cause. And then just trusting his police instincts, he's like, these people clearly, they didn't try to stop me from going into the house. And I was clearly here to see the homeowners come down, in the fog of having just woken up. So shortly after that, Lieutenant arrives from the Canton Police, and he does some things that I think in a lot of ways prove there was no cover-up, but also have created problems. So they found blood drops at the scene in the snow. Now, while this is going on, we're still in the early stages of this historic blizzard. Eventually, 22 inches of snow would fall there. Mm-hmm. And at this point, there's probably, 4, 5, 6 inches of snow. And so with that blood, these are local cops.
Yeah.
So eventually the state police will be arriving to take over this investigation, which is automatic in Massachusetts for any unattended death. But that's going to take some time. And they're looking at this evidence like the blood in the snow as perishable. So what they do, they don't have evidence kits.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a small town thing. So they borrow from a neighbor or from another cop. They had some solo cups, like basically that you'd have at a keg party. Mm-hmm. And they use that to gather the blood. And so they take it and they put that in a paper bag and brought that to the police station. Now that blood evidence ended up being not even tested because once they realized this was a hit and run, there was no reason to really test that blood. It was obviously John's. And we think where it came from was that John had a laceration on his tongue. The state's theory is that he was clipped and his elbow broke the taillight and the impact sent him back and he struck his head on the frozen ground.
Oh.
And this broke bones in the skull that eventually led to more swelling, and you get these chipmunk eyes and stuff like that. And they believe he was unconscious. That once he struck his head, he was unconscious and never regained conscious. Wow. And so, when he hit his head, he had that laceration on his tongue. And so when they arrived to rescue him and the women tried to perform CPR, there was a lot of blood in his mouth. Okay. And so Karen had ended up with blood all over her hands and on her face and in her hair. Okay. So some of that blood probably dripped out onto the snow. Mm-hmm. And that's some of what they collected. But they would have collected it thinking, well, maybe this guy was in a fight, and that could be from the other guy, And so if it was, you could use that blood for identification purposes. But the other thing they did, now I thought this was brilliant the way it turned out, but initially they took a lot of criticism. So the lieutenant, his name was Lieutenant Gallagher, showed up, and in the snow, he had one of the other officers film him while he took a leaf blower and meticulously melted the snow around the blood. I don't know where he learned this technique. He had seen it somewhere before, maybe up in Canada or something, but it ended up being brilliant because it reveals, because it's filmed, you get a sense of not only where that blood was, but what layer it was in the snow, which will give you a sense of time of when it maybe fell. Yeah. And again, it ended up being useless in this case, but I think it could have potentially been useful. And that evidence would have been lost if he didn't do that. Yeah. Yeah. So, but the defense tries to say, oh, this was a sloppy investigation, and they point to things like that.
No, that last technique is not sloppy. In fact, you're right. It is a little brilliant to try and preserve what you can preserve. Right. Like you said, there's 22 inches of snow falling. So at that point, as you and I know, as Northerners, there's not a lot that's going to be preserved in an outdoor scene once you start getting that kind of precipitation that's falling.
Maybe there are geniuses.
Maybe there are. Maybe there are a few. Well, you know what? There are skilled workers. We'll put it that way. Yeah. And there are definitely a lot of skilled workers in the police department. And they definitely know their job when it comes to collecting evidence or what they can do to collect evidence. And there are, let's face it, when it comes to local police departments, and sometimes definitely local police departments are handcuffed. They don't have a lot of resources to use. So they have
the other thing that
can.
This shows, Tim, is that so let's say that's some kind of crime happens in a house like that, right? And the house has a connection because the brother is a detective on the Canton Police, and because the homeowner grew up in the town and he knows everybody. And so the word goes out to the cops that are responding, cover up mode, look the other way, hear no evil, see no evil. Sergeant Schultz, this thing. All right. So these cops, now, there's a kind of, if you want to be a part of a conspiracy and you're actually going to plant evidence or do something like that, that's a whole different level of risk, because if you get caught, you're going to jail and you're losing your career. But something like looking the other way, this goes on every day. So if someone that knows the police gets in an accident and totals their car on a utility pole, and the cop arrives and they sees beer cans on the floor and he smells beer on the guy's breath, but he knows the guy, he can look the other way. You can't prove that he smelled that breath, and you can't prove that he saw those beer cans. So that's a whole different level. So if these guys were in look the other way mode, they wouldn't have demonstrated the high level of motivation that they did by going above and beyond the call of duty to use the leaf blower and to collect that blood.
Right.
So these are highly motivated cops, and they were not in look the other way mode.
Right. Well, and even so much as trying to get into the house. I mean, if it were truly a boys in blue scenario, why even try and follow Jen McCabe in the house? Why even try to investigate one of your own? If you know it's one of your own in the house, you just, like you said, you just stand outside and twiddle your thumbs and wait for whoever to show up, right? The state police to show up. It's not a matter of you do a lazy job of doing whatever and wait for the higher authorities to get there, and you just say, well, I didn't see anything. I don't know. So you're right. You could really make a conspiracy theory out of this and really do a lazier job of it, but they didn't. And you could. And then
there's another. To bring it to the next level, Tim. So then the state police are going to be taking over this investigation. Now, this is something. Trooper Proctor becomes a central figure in this case, and is a central figure in this case. He was on duty to be assigned as the case officer or lead investigator in the case. And people, all of us in the public, get a wrong idea about how this works. We think that the lead investigator is like Lieutenant Columbo going down to a mysterious crime scene and nosing around and trying to solve the crime. And that's not the way it is. And we really, if we think about it, don't want it that way. We want them going through the steps that they've been trained to go through in a systematic kind of way. And so Michael Proctor and his partner, Yuri Buchanan, who outranks him, they get the call early in the morning, and Proctor has a 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon kind of relationship to the Alberts. His sister is friends with Brian Albert's brother, Chris's wife's sister.
Okay.
So like I said, there's but he does know who the Alberts are. He's never met Brian Albert, but there is a little bit of a connection there. And he did tell his partner Yuri this on the chance that they thought he should be recused. And Yuri decided no, because now the way it works is state police detectives, at least in Massachusetts anyways, they're assigned. They're not working out of a state police barracks. They're assigned to a district attorney's office within the county, each within at the county level, and it makes sense. So when the state prosecutes a case, it's through a district attorney's office. So naturally, that's where the detectives are assigned, and that's where the evidence is stored. But that's something we in the public wouldn't have thought about. I certainly wouldn't have thought about, and I had to figure that out during the course of this case. So there were only 4 detectives assigned to this county, Norfolk County. So recusing yourself, especially during a blizzard, would have caused a lot of hardship.
Yeah.
So their first stop is to the Canton Police Station. Now they can talk to the officers that responded at the scene and to start to get the lay of the land. What does this case involve? The next stop from there is they go to Jen McCabe's house. Now, this Jen McCabe and Matt McCabe, so the McCabe's house. Both Jen and Matt were in the house, 34 Fairview, where John died. Both of them left. They were in the same car together and left with John lying on the lawn, and they didn't see him. Multiple people drove by John and didn't see him in the dark. And also, both the McCabe's were at the Waterfall restaurant when they invited these people back to the after-hours party. So they're key witnesses. And Jen obviously was with Karen in the morning and when they discovered John. So the troopers go to the McCabe's house, and Brian Albert meets them there. So, and he chooses to go there because his kids are older, and they've got 4 girls, and the girls were actually friends with John O'Keefe. Jen McCabe had been friends with John for 8 years, and Jen McCabe's daughter is best friends with John's niece, who he's raising, as his own child. So this was a very, very disturbing moment for them. So they wanted to be back at their house for it. So the troopers interview Brian Albert, Matt McCabe, and Jen McCabe each separately. So it's done by the book. Then they leave. Well, if there actually was a conspiracy, and the defense theory is that Brian Albert was involved with the killing of John and the framing, the whole plan. If there's ever a moment that they would have got their marching orders to go and get evidence from Karen's vehicle to plant at the scene, that's a time that they would have gotten that. That's a time where they said, all right, job one here is to go get some taillight pieces and bury that in the snow. And Karen's Lexus was sitting in John's driveway a mile away from the McCabe's. So if there was a conspiracy involving these troopers, they would have gone there next.
Yeah.
But they didn't. Instead, they went to the hospital where they viewed John's body, where they gathered evidence such as his clothing. That's where they found out that John was missing a shoe, which is a telltale sign of a pedestrian strike. And they also thought that Karen was going to be there. She had been Section 12'd because she had said something suicidal on the phone to his father. But what they didn't know was she was released to her father's custody shortly before they arrived. So Karen and her dad now go back to the O'Keefe house where the O'Keefe family is gathering. And after spending 20 minutes in the house, they leave. Her father drives Karen's Lexus to where the parents live, an hour away.
Okay.
So now the police have let the murder weapon escape because they didn't go secure that vehicle. But they may not have had probable cause to secure it. But certainly if there was a conspiracy, they would have known to get there and get those pieces. Because the longer you let this vehicle out there, who's to say that Karen or her father doesn't take a picture of that taillight? Right. And now if you tamper with it after that, you're going to be exposed. So it's only once at the hospital that they learned that John was missing a shoe. Now they really start saying, all right, this is probably a hit and run. So from there, they proceed to drive to the town of Dighton where Karen's parents live, and they arrange to have the vehicle towed. But again, this is, if you're looking at police and you're accusing them of planting evidence, does that behavior make sense where they, instead of going to secure the vehicle, they let the vehicle escape while they go to the hospital?
There's some other things here too that seem unusual. You mentioned that Karen and her father go to the O'Keefe home. They only show up for 20 minutes. And don't they go in and they mess with a computer, or they look for something on a computer and then they disappear?
Yeah, so that turns out to be maybe not true. So Karen, as you know, I mentioned the Ring video in John's driveway. John has 2 rings. He had 2 Ring cameras in there. And so we see Karen leaving the house at 5:08. We later see her arriving at 5:30 with Jen McCabe driving her car because Karen's too drunk and hysterical. And then Kerry Roberts driving her own vehicle, and they park there. They go in the house and they search for John. They think maybe he's come home and Karen just wasn't aware of it. And then they go and climb into Kerry's vehicle to go searching for John, and that's how they eventually find him. But there are some of those Ring videos are missing. So Karen arrived home and seemed to have parked in the driveway at 12:36. We know that because her phone connected to John's Wi-Fi automatically at that time. But video of her arriving is missing, presumed deleted. Also, so about 5 minutes later, she pulled into John's garage. That's missing. The video of Karen leaving at 5:08 is there. The video of Karen arriving at 5:30 with at the same time as Kerry and Jen, that's present. But the video of them leaving is missing, presumed deleted. Now, we know from the testimony of both Karen, that we'll hear this now on the Gretchen Voss video, but both Karen, Kerry, and Jen, that Karen showed them her broken taillight. So is that why she if she the state believes that she deleted the video, and that's why, because she was looking at the taillight. And that may be the same reason why the 1236 video is missing. If she got there and got out of her car and looked at her taillight, she might want to delete that. Now that if she did examine her taillight, that is crucial evidence that shows that would show that she knew she struck something.
Yeah.
So, but the state police never were able to determine from when or where that video was deleted. There was a theory that when they went back to John's house, we know that her and her dad went up to John's bedroom to get some things, and they were up there alone for about 20 minutes, and there's a computer in there. So the state seemed to initially believe that that's when and where she deleted the videos. However, in the trial, I believe one of the state troopers testified that she never did access that video. So to this day, we don't know how those Ring videos were deleted. The only one that would seem to have any incentive will be Karen. She could do it from any web browser as long as she had John's password and his sign-in. But we don't know to this day how it's been deleted.
Okay, and they don't know that. Well, I shouldn't say they don't know that, but they had no idea if she had his password or not. So
nope,
so
at this point,
obviously the only direct way to get into those videos would be to go home and access that computer. Okay. So we have to. The one thread we haven't connected here, Kevin, is so how exactly does this conspiracy line up if John O'Keefe is killed, not by Karen Reed and her hitting him with the car, but by being beaten up? Because there's some signs on John's body that he might not have been hit by a car, but might have been physically beaten up or killed by a wild animal or something like that. There's a mention in the book that there's some scratches on him that might have looked like it was done by a dog or a wild animal. Yeah. Or maybe even something in a fight. Now, there's a how should I put this? There's some, and I'll let you tell the story. There's some clues here that Karen might have exercised in some indiscretions. I'll let you take it from there. Were there some indiscretions with Brian here that might have taken place, and that's where this conspiracy theory goes from here?
Well, not Brian Albert.
Okay.
So inside the house was an ATF agent named Brian Higgins.
Yes.
And every other male in this story is named Brian.
Okay, yeah, so you can get them mixed up. Right.
There's a lot of Brians, but Brian Higgins is an ATF agent. I've actually had lunch with him and talked to him a lot of times on the phone. And, what has happened in his case has been destructive to him, but he's still working on the job.
Okay.
And so a few weeks before John's death, Karen had texted out of the blue. She got his number from, so these people all hung around at the neighborhood bar, one particular called the Hillside Pub. And so the ones that hung out there got to know each other. So she knew Higgins a little bit from drinking in there with John. And so John was somewhat friends with Brian Higgins too through that. And Brian Higgins had been over the house a few weeks before. So out of the blue, she texts Higgins saying that she thinks he's hot, and starts a text romance that lasts a few weeks and seems to have basically ended about a week before the trial.
Okay.
So the defense is trying to present Brian Higgins as a third-party culprit. He wanted John out of the way so he could have Karen, right?
Okay.
Brian Higgins was at the house when John was struck. And things were presented as, again, it's the job of defense to create these odd things. And they presented their theory through Turtle Boy on April 18th, 2023, intact, all in one day. So one of the odd things was Brian Higgins works for ATF, but he has an office at the Canton Police Station. And he reported into work that night after the party, after all this drink and everything, at 1:30 a.m. So this was presented to us. What is going on here? Is he trying to manage a crime scene or help plan this cover-up or something like that? And it turns out the explanation is more mundane, as it usually does. Brian does a lot of undercover work. And so he operates a couple of government vehicles in his job, plus he has his personal vehicle. And he has permission from the Canton Police to store these vehicles in that parking lot. But there was a snowstorm coming, and as a northerner, that if you're using a parking lot like that, you need to, if you know it's going to be plowed, you need to move your vehicles out of the lot or move it to a place the plow is okay with it, Yeah. And so he had left his keys. He had gone to the funeral in New York, which is, 5 hours from Boston. And he didn't know if he was coming back that night. So he left his keys on the desk in the office there with instructions for someone to move his vehicle if they needed to, if there was a storm. But because he had returned a day earlier than expected, he didn't want to leave that to someone else to do. So after he left 34 Fairview, he went to the Canton police station, briefly went inside to get those keys, moved the vehicles to the parking lot area and this is apparently all on video too. And that's it. So that was presented as really odd. And the other thing you mentioned was John's injuries.
Yes.
John's injuries are, look, if you've probably talked to many people in law enforcement, route cops and stuff like that. And one of the things that they'll say is that when it comes to injuries in a car accident or a hit and run, no two are alike. And sometimes the injuries are just, to us civilians, can be baffling. I've heard cops tell me, a 10-year-old girl was struck, and when he arrived, she's on the side of the road completely dead, but looks like an angel with not a mark on her. Mm-hmm. Other times it looks different. And so these are very traumatic moments for any of these cops to have to, probably the most traumatic moments they have on the job. And so we rely on experts that are in those fields to explain those injuries to us. Now, John's injuries are weird. So from the neck down, the only injuries he has are scratches on his arms. They're described as shallow abrasions by the medical examiner. And there are 3 sets of parallel tracks. So to any of us looking at that, we might say, oh, could that be teeth? Or could that be from claws, right? And that's what the defense is trying to say. And there was a German Shepherd inside the house. So the defense's theory is that John went inside the house, was ambushed. There's no motive. No one had any friction in that house with John. So the defense has really tried to come up with a motive, but really failed. But anyways, that they knew they were going to attack him. They lured him from the Waterfall restaurant. At the same time, knowing that their wives and kids were there, which seems crazy. Like, I don't know, I've watched a lot of mafia movies, and when they plan a hit, I don't think they usually do them in their own house in front of their wives and children, but this is the defense theory here, that they lured John into the house. They weren't planning to kill him, but they were planning to attack him. The attack maybe went too far, and they realized his injuries were serious, so rather than call the hospital, they decided to put him out alive on their own lawn to die. And that they told the McCabe's this, and the McCabe's drove home knowing that was the plan. So Jen allegedly made this search at 2:27 for how long to die in the cold. But back to John's injuries, so other than the scratches on his arm, there's a small abrasion on his right knee. He does have 2 broken ribs, but that was described as likely from CPR efforts. There's limited bruising on his arms, no visible broken bones. He was not put through an X-ray machine, so we don't know if there were fractures that were unseen. There's a 3-centimeter laceration that's horizontal on the back of his head. That, combined with hypothermia, is the official cause of death. Some combination of those things.
Okay.
The laceration, the head wound was not, according to the state, caused directly by the vehicle. It was caused by his head striking the ground. Okay. So you have a situation here where someone was a victim of a hit and run, allegedly, but only has shallow abrasions on their arm. Now, further that, both the emergency room doctors and the medical examiner said there were no signs of John being in a fight. The swelling on the eyes was medically explained from what happens when you have broken bones in the skull. Yep. And, you get this swelling that leads to more blood vessels bursting and more swelling until it comes around, and it creates something very well known in the medical community as chipmunk eyes. Yep. Other than that, he only has 2 small scratches on his face, I think one on his nose and one on his cheek. There's no split lip. There's no black eyes. There's no evidence of him being struck. His hands are basically clean. There is a bruise on the right hand that is probably consistent with an IV being inserted there. Mm-hmm. But also, when he was struck, the state's theory is that it struck him in the arm, the taillight, as he tried to maybe get out of the way. His arms, he was holding a cocktail glass that he had brought from the bar. Yeah. His arm snapped into the panel. Now, there's a dent in the panel that is exactly a forearm's length away from the taillight. And there are broken pieces of cocktail glass found on the bumper. Oof. So the bruise on the hand was probably also caused from that And then he was, like I said, but so people dispute. And so there is in the middle of the trial, there was a retired emergency room doctor named Dr. Russell that suddenly emerged and said, yes, I'm an expert in dog wounds. I used to study police dog wounds from police bites from police dogs, and those are from a dog. Now, this Dr. Russell emerged in Los Angeles. She reached out to the defense through a prosecutor in the Los Angeles office. Well, Alan Jackson, the high-profile defense lawyer, is based out of Los Angeles and was a prosecutor in that building for 16 years. So, is that a coincidence? Who knows?
Yeah. Although I can only think of one thing that you could tie to that, and I mean it's an extreme reach, and I mean this in the most sincere way, Kevin, and that's this. And you know, again, I'm going to use the Northerner reference here. As a Northerner, you know this, and it would be an extreme reach, and I mean this in the most sincere way. You know this when snow falls, and especially when it's a blizzard. Wildlife does not move. Most wildlife lays down. Right. Deer lay down. Right. Coyotes lay down. Wolves lay down. Unless the dog went out to go to the bathroom and then went to check to see if he was dead, there's nothing. It
could not have, because the dog they had a fenced-in backyard, and so the dog did not have access to going out the front.
Then the dog wouldn't have checked on him. And we know that most wildlife don't roam when major storms are brewing.
Well, the defense's theory, is that he was attacked inside the house. So the theory is that they jumped John, and the dog also attacked at the same time, and that they hit him on the back of the head with an object, or whacked his head on the desk or something.
Then there would be bite marks. And there are no bite marks on the body if the dog was attacked.
Dr. Marie Russell says that those wounds are bite marks, a combination of bite marks and nail marks from the dog. She doesn't distinguish which one is from a tooth and which one is from a nail, but she says that that's the pattern that what she's seeing.
I think they'd be a little bit more pronounced, wouldn't you? From a German Shepherd, you should know what a bite mark looks like, right?
They're shallow wounds. They're shallow wounds, and they're also they were described as shallow wounds from a blunt object. Now, nails are a sharp object,
right?
So, but Dr. Marie Russell has added a little bit to this. She was questioned in voir dire in preparation for the second trial, and now she's developed a little bit more methodology. And what she pointed to was John's shirt. And so there were corresponding holes in the shirt. And what she said is the threads in that are outside of the shirt, which to her was indicative that a claw or some object went through the shirt, made the wound, and then as it pulled the thread out.
And that couldn't have happened from a glass.
Well, see, this is where we get into, we're not experts on this, right? So we have to listen to these competing theories and then also weigh all the other evidence. So the state did a really bad job. They knew for over a year before the trial that the defense was going to say this, and they still they didn't really offer their own explanation, other than just to say, well, those were caused by the taillight, but they didn't make any effort at all to show how. Now, it's going to be different this second trial because the state relied just on state police experts in the first trial and state employees like the medical examiner. Now they've spared no expense, and they've hired accident reconstructionists and different other types of experts, their own dog bite expert. And we don't know what so this company called Aperture that truly is qualified, they're going to present the accident reconstruction theory.
Yeah.
We'll have to hear what it is. We got a hint, a little bit of part of it, actually from the defense in a recent hearing. It sounds like maybe they took a taillight, ripped off the outer piece, similar to where it was on Karen's Lexus, and put paint on it, and then had that taillight up against the dummy or something like that to see if it could recreate those same parallel patterns. I think. We'll have to see. That would make some sense, and if you could recreate it at least somewhat in a factory setting or something to that effect, or in a more scientific setting, I think that would take a lot of speculation out of the deal and make it more solidified. Before we start to wrap things up, you mentioned Turtle Boy.
You brought him into the conversation here. I want you to tell us a little bit about Turtle Boy, how he brought the other Brian into the conversation, and why he was accused of witness tampering.
Well, he's charged with about 20 counts of witness intimidation.
Oh, I'm sorry, witness intimidation, not tampering, but intimidation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what Turtle Boy is kind of a modern P.T. Barnum blogger that considers himself a journalist that is breaking cases. He's developed these methods over 10 years. And the key to his power is now that he has a following, he's completely unhindered by any ethics at all. His main driving impulse is to get attention. And people understand that if you oppose him, and I've experienced this firsthand, if you ask questions in a way that he doesn't want to hear, him and his minions will try to dig into your past or the past or that of your family and try to find something embarrassing. And his threat, and I have copies of this to people, was, hey, we'll blog about you tomorrow. And he's got his minions that'll make that threat. Hey, hope you like your picture tomorrow if you don't play ball here. So the idea is, if don't piss him off or he's going to blog about you, he's going to show an embarrassing picture. And they're not afraid to make up stuff either. So for instance, I was diagnosed in 2018 with stage 4 cancer. And I don't try to broadcast that, but they figured that out looking into my social media. And they say, well, how could this guy have stage 4 cancer all the way back then and he's still around? And so they're saying that I faked cancer.
Jesus.
I wish.
That's
but
low.
Turtle Boy, yeah. So this is what this mob is. And so Turtle Boy, and you know, I mentioned the live show. We were talking before we started recording.
Yeah.
You know, Turtle Boy runs a big live show on YouTube, makes a lot of money in it, and he's making over $30,000 a month doing this show. Yep.
Seriously.
At least. It costs $15 a month to become his member, the basic level.
Okay.
And he's got well over 1,000 members. So, and then there's the donations and everything else. With Turtle Boy, there's a demand now to generate new, fresh content for 2 shows a week. And so once he started pushing this case, and once he had tethered his wagon to Karen Reed, now he's got to generate that fresh content. And pretty much all the evidence was handed to him on day one by the defense team. So there wasn't going to be a lot of new stuff coming out. How do you generate that content? Well, he brings a mob to Canton. He's not from Canton, lives about 45 minutes away, starts bringing it in there, starts calling himself the mayor of Canton. And he starts harassing the witnesses. At one point, he claims that it was Karen that directed him to do this, by the way. He took his cameraman to the youth lacrosse game of Jen McCabe, where she was in the stands watching her daughter play a youth lacrosse game. And he goes in with his cameraman to harass her. And this is to generate content for his channel. A month later, and again, this is also allegedly with the input of Karen, they create what they called a rolling rally. They had dozens of cars. They had over 150 people. And they went during the day. They brought this rally to the homes of every one of the witnesses and investigators, and got out there with bullhorns, accused them of being murderers. Some of these people knew it was coming and got away. Other ones had to hide their kids inside the house. Most recently, Turtle Boy has doxed the special prosecutor, given out his number, given out his address. He's doxed the prosecutor's wife. He's threatened to bring a mob to the soccer games of the kids of the attorney general, who isn't even involved really in the case. This is and nobody will stand up to this guy. Nobody will speak up to this guy. I do, but very few people. Lawyers are terrified of him. I have had a lot of lawyers that won't get involved as special prosecutors in this or speak publicly because they're afraid of the damage that his mom will do. And Tim, I wanted to, there's something that we didn't have time to go. There's so many parts of this case, but I wanted to get into this because I know your audience will be interested in this.
Please.
Because this is just one of those incredibly unique aspects of this case. Mm-hmm. So in August of 2022, 8 months after John's death, Karen and her team somehow got a meeting with the first assistant U.S. attorney of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston, so the feds. That's a high-level position. His name is Josh Levy, elite guy. Somehow they get the meeting, probably because her main lawyer, David Iannetti, is very well connected. Now, in this meeting, we don't know what they said, but they pitched the idea that there was a conspiracy to kill John and a cover-up. They convinced Josh Levy. All right, so Josh Levy began to launch a very significant federal investigation into the investigation of Karen Read. Within months, they were launching a federal grand jury. They were subpoenaing the records, the communications records of all the people that were in the house or that the defense says were the real killers. Eventually, they not only subpoenaed the records, but they used warrants to get the content. They were able to read the content of these private citizens who have done nothing wrong, to read the content of their messages. So the U.S. Attorney's Office goes into this. Now, in the first trial, for all intents and purposes, the federal investigation was over. They weren't doing, as far as we know, any actual investigating. The last person they interviewed was Trooper Proctor on February 1st, so a few months before the trial. Mm-hmm. But the way the feds are, when now they're embarrassed, at this point they realize that there was no conspiracy. Yeah. So, but that's embarrassing to them. Yeah. And there was a lot of highly inappropriate, irregular, close communication between. Now, Josh Levy goes on to become the U.S. attorney. He kind of rats on his supervisor, and she gets fired. So now he's the top dog. And amazingly, he directly questions the witnesses in this federal grand jury. No one I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of people, former U.S. attorneys. I've talked to FBI, a lot of them, and nobody could ever remember or hearing of any case where a U.S. attorney came down and questioned witnesses himself. Not only did he question the witnesses, and he did this at a time when the mob was attacking them, and he certainly would have known that, but he used as a prop to question them a blow-up of TB Daily News, Turtle Boy's blog. He put that to where the witnesses could see this. So these witnesses who were being hounded by this guy could see the all-powerful U.S. attorney using the blogger's blog to question them.
Unbelievable.
And question them mercilessly to bring, So in the first trial, the judge had this really difficult needle to thread. The defense wanted to tell the jury that there's a federal investigation of the investigation, because that alone, just the existence of that, is going to create reasonable doubt, right?
Yeah.
So the judge basically said, you're not allowed to mention the federal investigation. Now, I've talked to a judge this morning, another judge that disagrees with that decision. But I agree with that decision, because there's no way to tell the jury that the feds actually didn't find anything. Now, so fast forward to this year, end of January, there's a new U.S. attorney, because we have a change in administration in the White House.
Yes. Yeah.
So out goes one, in comes another. Now, initially, the feds, but some of his people are still in there. Initially, the feds tell the parties that the investigation is ongoing. Mm-hmm. And they report, and so they try to exploit this, the defense, by putting this out there in a hearing. Because this makes, people in the public, this went on all during the first trial. The feds are coming tomorrow. They're going to blow this whole thing. They're going to arrest everybody. Just got this crowd constantly worked up to a fever pitch thinking that. Well, 3 weeks into February, the new U.S. attorney had her people call up the Canton Police, the district attorney, and the Mass State Police to report to them that the investigation is over in all aspects and that no charges are forthcoming, but that they were not going to make a statement because DOJ policy is to not make a statement. So another just amazing, so now you face in the second trial, are you going to allow the defense team to tell the jurors that there was a federal investigation? Well, if so, the only fair thing would be to allow the jury to know that the investigation is over and that there were no charges.
Right.
But how are you going to, what witness is going to be able to say that to a jury? This doesn't seem to be a way. Right. So there's a lot of needles to thread here, a lot of interesting aspects of this case.
A lot of interesting aspects. I tell you what, Again, folks, to get the complete story of it, you want to pick up Kevin's book, Storm of Suspicion, The Trials of the Decade, as examined by court TV expert, our guest today, Kevin Lenihan. And again, if you want even more in depth, you want to go to Yellow Cottage Tales. We'll have a link in the description of this program so you can dive even deeper. Kevin, I want to thank you so much for being on the program today and informing our listeners and viewers of this case. Man, it is intriguing as all get out as to just how deep this rabbit hole goes.
Thank you for having me, Tim. You're a great interviewer, so be happy to come back and join you anytime.
Absolutely, we definitely have to have you back, and we'll if it's not this rabbit hole, we'll dive deeper into another one. Definitely, I'd love having you
no
on.
Doubt,
so
no doubt.
Thank you so much, folks. We're going to lighten things up a little bit. Let's bring in Jessica Freeberg. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time again, the time you've all been looking forward to. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals. And with that, of course, we need a co-hostess. So what I have done is I've said to myself, I need someone who's imaginative, literary, who's funny, who hasn't committed a crime, but knows of crime. I need someone who is intelligent and knows nothing of the dumb, but could put herself in a dumb mindset if she needed to. I need someone who could laugh along, yet not laugh at. I need someone who could relate to all of this, yet can't relate at all. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring her in now. Here she is, Jessica Freeberg. Jessica, how are you today?
I'm good. That was a magical introduction.
Well, I tried. I'm trying to mix it up a little bit, So there you go.
I'm not a criminal and I'm not dumb, but I can relate. But I can't relate. I can.
Yeah. Something like that. Right?
That's what I took away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Boy, do we have stories today, Jess. We're just going to jump right into it today. Let me give you a little foreshadowing of what's going on here today. We've got everything from evil to not even close to evil, everything from misguided to unfortunate, and everything from innocent to pervy. We're running the gamut today.
Sounds like a roller coaster. I'm ready.
It is. All right, let's get to it then. Have you ever dined and dashed in your lifetime?
Oh, no. Have you?
Not on purpose. I know that sounds like a bullshit line, doesn't it? I have accidentally dined and dashed. I thought somebody had picked up the bill for our table and then found out that the person that was going to pick up didn't pay the bill.
Oh, no.
And that we all walked out on the bill. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Which is horrible. I wanted to go back, but they're like, no, dude, we'll get arrested. So we were very young. So, yeah, we just all kind of walked out.
No, I've never done that. Not even on accident.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. That would be a bad feeling.
I carry that scarlet letter with me even to this day. I want to go back.
Oh, the shame.
I know. I want to go back years and years later and just be like, here it is with interest. They probably don't even know. Or they have a warrant out for my arrest, one or the other.
There's a picture of you in the back room.
Probably, yeah. Like, you ever see this guy arrest him? Yeah. Well, the ultimate dine and dash happened at IHOP this week in San Antonio. Put it this way. If you ever see this form of currency, run.
Uh-oh.
An armed dine and dash happened with two IHOP robbers getting away with their free breakfast. In other words, a gun came out.
They had guns? That's crazy.
Isn't it? I don't think IHOP is that good that you need to pull a gun.
I feel like pancakes and guns just don't go together.
Yeah, they really don't. No.
Weird.
Yeah. By the way, I'm going to stop the progress of this story right here. Our good friend Spider Baby and I went to Hell's Kitchen in Minneapolis on Sunday.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, Jess, I had the best lemon ricotta pancakes on earth.
Ooh, that sounds amazing.
Not just lemon ricotta pancakes with berries on top and a caramel sauce over the top.
Stop it.
I'm telling you.
That's just mean to tell us about that. We can't eat those right now.
I could eat them right now if you had them for me.
Such a tease.
I don't know what to say. And I had a side of scrambled eggs with them. And it didn't cost me the cost of a house to have the scrambled eggs on the side.
I've never been to Hell's Kitchen, but I've heard it's really good.
It's amazing. It is truly amazing. I mean, not just
I'm kind of mad you guys didn't invite me. What the heck? Come on.
It was short notice. Actually, we were going to go to Kramarchik's for lunch. That's our normal spot. And then we realized, as we showed up there, we found out it was closed on Sunday and Monday. So we had to call an audible. And what do you do when you call an audible? You ask SIRI where we're going. She pulls up a list of restaurants. And I said, hey, Spider, want to go to hell for lunch? And he,
Like the perfect place for the two of you.
yeah, right. And he said, yeah, sure, why not? So we went to hell for lunch.
Yummy. Those are fancy pancakes.
They are. I tell you what, I'll take you to Hell's Kitchen. For teasing you, I'll take you to Hell's Kitchen for lunch one day, or breakfast, whatever it is.
Holding you to it.
There you go. Lemon ricotta pancakes.
Yum. But I bet you didn't pull out a gun when you got done eating.
No, I didn't hold up the server at all. Although the server was very nice. He was a nice guy, very much so. And you know what I found out? What's really cool too is I had normally you order whatever you order to drink. I didn't want coffee per se. For some reason, I was in a soda mood, and I was like, Coke or Pepsi? You always assume Coke or Pepsi wherever you go. And he looked at me and he goes, we don't do that. We have a locally sourced cola or root beer or that we serve. So how's that for refreshing?
That's really fun.
Right? So I was like, I'll have your locally sourced cola, please. I felt all special.
It really sounds fancy.
Doesn't it?
Hell sounds fancy. I want to go there.
Hell had a full bar at 11 in the morning.
Of course it did.
Yes, it did.
On a Sunday.
And it was pleasant. Everyone was pleasant in Hell. That was kind of nice. So, all right. Now back to somebody's own personal hell at High Hop. Just saying. Police need your help identifying two dangerous characters who pulled off an aggravated robbery at a popular Southwest Side breakfast spot. It happened last Thursday. Well, actually, a couple Thursdays ago, March 20th, at the IHOP restaurant at 2634 Southwest Military Drive. And it was just before 7 a.m. when an employee notified her manager that she suspected two diners were preparing to dine and dash and leave the restaurant without paying. The 24-year-old manager walked up to the table and asked the two suspects if they needed any assistance. One of the suspects motioned to the manager to come closer to their booth where they were sitting. That's when one of them lifted his shirt to show her a handgun in his waistband. That is not how you pay for breakfast, Jess.
Not where I'm from.
Nope. Not unless in your waistband is a roll of $100 bills and you want to hand one to the manager and say, good job with this restaurant. Right?
Oh, that's crazy. That poor manager.
Right. Now, fearing for her life, the quick-thinking manager escorted the employees to the rear of the restaurant as the suspects fled the store without paying. Crime Stoppers is offering a reward of $5,000 for tips leading to the two suspects. If you know of who these two morons are, you can call 210-224-7867 and report them. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a link in the description of this program because there are pictures of these two. They did catch them on the store's video camera. So if you recognize either one of them, you can call the tips line or you can click on the link that's in the article and you can turn them in yourself.
Yes, let's bust them.
That's right. That's right. Even better, Jess, when you need some quick carbs after you've been wielding a machete, what do you go to for that quick carb pick-me-up? Because that machete's heavy.
Oh, that's a lot of work wielding a machete. I mean, it depends on what I'm doing with it. Am I chopping someone's head off? Am I, just chopping off a limb? I feel like chopping a head off would take more energy, but probably some bread. I like bread.
You're on the right track here, right? We're going to go to Asheville, North Carolina, where this guy right here, I'm going to have you get a good look at him. Here he is. There he is. See?
All right.
Yeah. He decided
a little crazy.
He looks a little crazy, although he looks mighty calm in that booking photo. He decided he needed some quick carbs after wielding a machete out at an Asheville grocery store. So he decided, hey, cinnamon bun. Right?
I was going to say cinnamon roll. Oh my gosh, I should have.
See?
We could have been twins, me and that guy.
Machete wielding twinsies. Just saying. He was caught mid-snack by Asheville police as he had a machete in one hand and a delicious cinnamon bun in the other. He's like, hold on just a minute. Quick snack. Very tired. Very exhausted. Asheville police arrested and charged a man connected to an armed robbery with a machete that took place at an Asheville grocery store on the evening of Monday, March 31st. Cinnamon bun in the evening, maybe a sandwich, I think, at that point. I mean...
Oh, yeah, definitely something savory in the evening.
Yeah, you don't want to go sweet in the evening. I mean, you're going to go to bed soon, hopefully. I mean, you're going to get the 3 hots and a cot if the cops got you. You know?
You're going to be all jacked up on sugar, though, if you're eating a cinnamon roll that late.
Yeah, that's true. So armed robbery with a machete took place at an Asheville grocery store in the evening of Monday, March 31st. Officers with the Asheville Police Department responded to the 600 block of Haywood Road around 5:25 p.m. on Monday to investigate the robbery. Upon arrival, a store employee told officers that a man had stolen a cinnamon bun and incense. That's a complete evening for me. We're done there. Light up your incense, get the nice vibes going, get a little sugar going, and
clear your aura.
Yeah, and not only that, but get your blood sugar up to about 450 and then crash out from a coma. That's what I say. Yeah. When confronted,
snuggling your machete,
and then wielding my machete, because everybody needs to whittle before they go to bed. That's why not a machete. When confronted, the man displayed a machete before running away. So he went, "Here it is, run away!" And then I don't know how you do that, but officers quickly located the suspect who matched the description and was eating a Cinnabon, police said. So they went, that's him. That's the guy with the machete eating a cinnamon bun. Freeze, I think is how it went. The suspect was identified as 33-year-old Jeffrey Dwayne Bradburn, who was taken into custody. Bradburn is charged with the following: robbery with a dangerous weapon, shoplifting concealment goods, and possession of drug paraphernalia. I think that would be the incense is what they're calling the drug paraphernalia, unless he had drug paraphernalia.
Oh.
Bradburn was... Yeah. Is incense...
He must have had something. I don't feel like incense qualifies.
Is incense drug paraphernalia?
I mean, no. You might be trying to hide the smell with it, but...
Bradburn was booked into the Buncombe County Detention Facility under a $50,000 secured bond. No word on if the cinnamon bun made it out alive. Another instance where a cinnabon would not be making it out alive is a wife who's 8 months pregnant and happened to rob 2 banks and duped her unwitting husband to be her getaway driver while telling him he was collecting her from a checkup at the same time, Jess.
What?
We have a little bit of an involved story for this next story.
This sounds like something straight off a Lifetime.
It does, doesn't it? Our Lifetime movie for this week is The Pregnant Bandit.
I'd watch it.
The Baby Bump Bandit. On Lifetime. Craziest thing you did while pregnant?
Well, I ate hot dogs mashed up with mashed potatoes every night, which was kind of crazy and disgusting, but delicious.
You goddamn rebel.
It was rebellious because the doctor said don't eat hot dogs, and I'm like, I can't stop. It's all I want.
Why did he say don't eat the hot dogs?
They're not good for you. They're really bad. And I had preeclampsia. I had kind of a troubled first pregnancy, but I'm like, Give me the sodium. I need it.
Yeah. It's better than the, peanuts in the shell with the salted peanuts, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's the craziest thing I did.
Well, goddamn rebel.
I'm a wild one.
Yeah, you are. Not as wild as this, though. A wife robbed 2 banks while she was 8 months pregnant and duped her unwitting husband into being her getaway driver. She just couldn't take a pint of Chunky Monkey and be happy.
A strange craving. I crave to rob.
I crave to rob and steal. By the way, honey, can you just take me to my checkup?
It's for the baby.
It's for the baby. I'm just going to load this AK real quick. What's that for? The doctor. Anna A. We don't give her last name. It's like Robbers Anonymous around here.
Okay.
Olive, 37 years old. She's an older pregnant lady, so you got to forgive her. She's prone to rage.
Yeah.
Robbed 2 banks in the Lublin region of Poland in October and November of 2023 after being inspired by gangster films she watched during her pregnancy.
What?
I am big fan of Johnny Depp.
That's crazy.
She burst into the cooperative bank in Krakow, brandishing a knife and demanded the cashier give her money before fleeing on foot with her haul. She's like a pregnant Tarzan. She swung in with a knife in her teeth and...
I'm like 8.5 months pregnant. Her running away would be straight up waddle for sure. Like you're not walking right.
Some people get energy when they're pregnant, I guess.
Yeah.
Right, Jess? I mean, come on. Police launched a large manhunt with road closures and search dogs following the robbery, but officers were unable to find the thief. How could you not find her? I mean, come on. By the way, they described the thief as short and likely female. What was she supposed to be? Short and a penguin? I mean...
that is funny.
Huh?
Just a very stout man.
Yeah. So
just the belly.
Short, fat guy with long hair.
I mean, a beer belly does kind of look like a pregnant belly.
And he was holding a large dill pickle and a knife. And he kept chomping on the pickle. We don't know. 2 weeks later, Anna A. targeted another branch of the same bank in the town of, I believe it is Pulawi. Police say she carried an object similar to a firearm. She made her husband an unwitting accomplice when she told him to pick her up after a checkup appointment at the hospital. In reality, he was acting as her getaway driver from a parking lot near the bank where she committed the first robbery.
Oh, wow.
Oh. Well, combing through CCTV footage, investigators noticed that the thief had a baby bump and managed to track Anna A. down. She was arrested a day after the second robbery in November of 2023. In total, she stole about 10,000 pounds, half of which was discovered in the basement of her house after she spent the other half on building materials for the family home. I have a little... Oh God, I have a picture of her in...
Doing a little addition before the baby gets here.
That's right. This is why they think she was unidentifiable, Jess. Here's what she was wearing.
Yeah, she's pretty well covered up.
Yeah. Yeah, she's got a ski mask on and goggles over the ski mask and a big jacket. And
I mean, I would assume that was a woman, though.
Yeah, I don't think that's a guy by any means. And here's the lower half of her. It's not like there's I mean, kind of can tell it's not a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you just kind of know by the shape.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pregnant woman.
By the way, this is them taking her away. I don't mean to laugh at this scenario.
But they're not showing us her face or anything. They're like really protecting her identity. I don't understand.
Well, they are. I think, innocent until proven guilty.
Not like she's 14. She's 37.
Well, maybe they don't want to embarrass the kid.
Well, that's nice of them. Trust me, that kid's going to be embarrassed for many reasons, I'm sure.
Well, when he's born in jail, I mean,
Yeah.
we'll get to know a whole new set of godparents. I don't know. A knife and remnants of clothes believed to have been used in the robberies were also found in the suitcase that was in the basement, along with the remnants of the $10,000 that she had spent on home improvements. According to Polish media reports, Anna A. had told her husband that the money stored in the suitcase in their basement was from a lottery win.
Oh gosh, is this guy just a sucker? Like, my husband would be like, "What?
A lottery win?
What bank did you hold up? Come on, be real."
Jess, since when did you start playing the North Five? Come on, lottery win.
Also, you're not that lucky. There's no way.
Lottery win? What? How come you didn't take me down to lottery headquarters? Because you were busy.
Right? And when you won it, you would be like, "Oh my God, I won the lottery." You wouldn't be like, later, "Oh, it's in a suitcase. I have lottery money."
Yeah, I didn't want to. I didn't want to bother you. You have so much going on, hon. You're so busy.
Oh.
I just went down by myself. Both my son and my husband believed what I told them, she reportedly said in court. They did?
Kind of gullible.
That's a hell of a sales job, I'll tell you that. She was sentenced to 4 years in prison for the bank robberies and causing bodily harm in 2024 and was ordered to pay a fine as compensation to the banks. The housewife said she acted alone and her husband didn't know about her criminal activities. She gave birth to her baby behind bars and has been allowed to care for her child while in prison. The mother of three appealed. Mother of three? Holy cats. Mother of three appealed the sentence, but a Lublin court upheld the verdict last Thursday. Her defense lawyer had asked for a more lenient sentence of 3 years, but, and this is the proverbial big but of the sentence. I'm just looking for the other part of the story here. But, and this is the proverbial big but of the sentence, I think it cut off the story. But I believe that's it. It just says but.
No, the butt's so big you can't see the rest.
That's right. Well, it kind of was. Yeah, in one of those photos. One of the comments says, "I wonder if there was a pregnant pause when she shouted, 'Stick 'em up.'" That's kind of a funny line.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Man, 8 months pregnant with your third kid. I literally, there's no way I would be robbing a bank. I felt like Brielle was just going to fall out at any minute. She was so I just was couldn't even hardly walk.
Yeah. They asked for the lenient sentence and evidently didn't get it. So man, can you imagine giving birth behind bars?
No, that's so sad.
That's some Tupac stuff right there. He was born behind bars.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she got her wish. She's a gangster now, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that kind of what she was inspired by?
Anna A. Gangsta. That's right. Polish gangsta, which means you're not that hard? I don't know.
From pregnant housewife to gangster.
Yeah.
What a journey.
What a journey. Indeed. Got to write a book, I guess. We go from Polish bank robber to cocky car thief as we go to Houston, Texas. A cocky car thief taunts his neighbor after crashing a stolen vehicle near Friendswood. Why is this unusual, you may say, Tim? Why is this unusual? Well, I'll tell you why it's unusual. Because the people he stole from were in law enforcement.
Ooh, bad choice.
Yeah, right. Brazen car thief crashed a stolen 2024 Dodge Charger, nice pick, by the way, into a ditch near Friendswood before arrogantly taunting a neighbor who confronted him. The incident began early Sunday morning when a couple who work in law enforcement and wish to remain anonymous reported their Dodge Charger stolen. Doorbell camera footage from around 3:45 a.m. show the thief rummaging through the car parked on the street before managing to start it and drive away. 2 hours later, neighbor Brad Reynolds heard squealing tires outside his home. He captured the stolen Charger on cell phone video, driving off into his neighborhood on Rex Road near Hope Village Road. By 7 a.m., the vehicle was nose down in a ditch, and Reynolds approached to get the image of the license plate. "Too bad you didn't get my face. It's stolen," he laughs. "It's a stolen vehicle," he repeats in a taunting voice. Really? That's the
Dummy.
best. That's the best you had. However, Reynolds had, in fact, captured a clear image of the thief. That's quite a blooper there. I did get his face, Reynolds said. Before running away from the scene, the suspect hurled a racial slur and issued a threat. I'll be back for you. I know where you came from. I'll be back. It would be unwise to come back, Reynolds later told ABC 13. The Charger was severely damaged and could be a total loss, the victim said. Meanwhile, the Harris County Precinct 2 Constable's Office is working to identify the suspect. Both the victims and their watchful neighbors share the same sentiment. Justice must be served. Actions have consequences, the car's owners say. Reynolds added, the only way you're going to deter crime is to punish it. If you let people steal cars and get away with it, you get a slap on the hand. They'll keep doing it. I hope charges are brought. Authorities are continuing their investigation and urge anyone with information to contact Precinct 2. Well, at least the guy got the guy on camera, right?
Yep. Can't get away with anything anymore, Tim.
That's right. There's cameras everywhere, Jess. Cameras everywhere. Well, we go from one stolen car and one guy on video to a guy who did the cannonball run of all thefts. He went from a mail truck to a boat to getting into a deadly police shootout in Laughlin, Nevada.
Gosh.
Well, sometimes you got to go through that marathon, Jess. You got to see how many hurdles you can clear, right?
Very ambitious.
He's very ambitious. Yeah, he had a lot of energy. Evidently the Ritalin didn't kick in that morning. We go to Las Vegas, where a mail truck theft on Thursday escalated into a deadly confrontation with police, resulting in the death of a suspect in Bullhead City, Arizona. The incident began around 1:42 p.m. when deputies from the Mojave County Sheriff's Office responded to the report of a stolen mail truck at the intersection of South Pearl Street and East Chaparral Road in Fort Mojave, Arizona. The mail truck driver was away from the vehicle when an unknown car approached, according to authorities. A passenger then jumped into the mail truck and drove off, followed by the other vehicle. At approximately 2:49 p.m., the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police officers found the suspect vehicle unoccupied in parking lot on South Casino Drive in Laughlin. Evidence of the vehicle was discovered inside, or evidence of the theft, rather, was discovered inside, and video surveillance helped identify two individuals associated with the vehicle, according to police. One suspect was later found behind a building along the river, where he pointed a handgun at an officer before fleeing. That's always a bad idea. That suspect then stole a boat and crossed to the Arizona side of the river, eventually abandoning the boat and fleeing into an apartment complex on Highway 95 in Bullhead City. So now we're back in Arizona. At about 3:41 p.m., Bullhead City police found the suspect in the complex parking lot when the suspect fired at the officers who returned fire. Now we got us a full firefight, Jess.
Now it's trouble.
Now it's trouble. The suspect is identified as 48-year-old Eric Tom Watkins of Bullhead City, was struck during the exchange and later pronounced dead at the scene despite life-saving efforts.
Oh, no.
Again, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A records check revealed Watkins had multiple active felony warrants. The stolen mail truck was found abandoned about 4 miles from the theft location, with mail and personal items missing. The second suspect involved in the theft remains at large and was not involved in the shooting. Detectives from the Mojave County Sheriff's Office, assisted by the Kingman Police Department, are investigating the officer-involved shooting. The officers involved have been placed on paid administrative leave following standard protocol. Talk about an exciting afternoon.
Yeah. Didn't end very well, though, for that guy.
Not for one guy, no. But for a second guy who's still out on the loose, you don't know. I got to think that guy's laying low somewhere, just breathing heavy.
Yeah, he's definitely hiding out.
Yeah, just trying not to come up for air because he knows. You got to think the cops know who that second guy is.
You think they'd be able to figure it out?
Yeah, they have to have an idea. Someone had to identify that second guy somewhere along the line, especially since I think those mail trucks have video devices on them.
Yeah, right? I think they do.
So if there was a plate or an identification of the driver, they have to know if they got a good shot of the driver. They have to know who that is.
And you think their friends would know, right? Like they're two of their friends, there's one gone and the other one's missing. Like,
Yeah. I got to think they're probably just not letting on that they know. But who knows? Maybe they'll catch them. All right. I have an unusual conundrum for you here. You know, there's that commercial with Will Ferrell where he goes up to the lemonade stand
yeah.
and he gives the kid crap because he has a problem with the lemonade.
Yeah.
Are you a believer in harassing a kid at a lemonade stand, or are you nice at a lemonade stand, Jess, when you purchase lemonade from
I
your
would
child?
always be nice at a lemonade stand.
Okay. Well, our next man is, of course, a Florida man. This guy right here. And he wasn't so nice when he approached a kid at a lemonade stand.
Who gave him that scab on his forehead? Did the kid haul off and punch him?
I'm hoping. It was either him or the parents. This man, who's all of 45 years old, committed battery after being denied a free refill at a kid's lemonade stand. Who asks for a free refill?
Oh, my goodness.
It's a lemonade stand. Well, how much can it cost for a cup of lemonade? Right?
$1 maybe,
If that.
25 cents if they're going on the cheap.
Yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, kid's probably trying to work his way towards Disney or something. Just pay for the lemonade. Who cares, right?
How weird.
Yeah. Incensed that he was denied a free refill at a lemonade stand run by children, a Florida man aggressively grabbed a female victim, adopted a fighting stance, and warned that he would beat her up, according to cops. This guy's a treasure. He really is. He's a pillar of his community. Investigators say that 45-year-old Stephen Cusimano was walking in a Clearwater neighborhood. Of course, it's in Clearwater. Around 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday when he observed a lemonade stand being run by several juveniles and the victim. Cusimano purchased one glass of lemonade, then became angry when he was not allowed to refill his cup. According to a criminal complaint, you don't do that. You just purchase your lemonade. You have a cup of lemonade.
Yeah,
you move
just
on.
give the kid another $1. Come on.
Yeah. Cusimano then allegedly grabbed the victim by the wrist aggressively while standing in a fighting stance, telling the victim he would beat her up. Cusimano left the residential area on foot, but was quickly apprehended by an officer. During police questioning, Cusimano reportedly admitted to the entire sequence of events, but claimed that he grabbed the victim due to her talking shit to me. That's the quote.
Oh, my God.
God. The complaint does not list the age of the victim. Cusimano, who cops describe as a transient, was charged with felony battery, an enhanced count due to Cusimano's extensive rap sheet, which includes multiple prior convictions for battery, as well as convictions for trespassing, narcotics possession, disorderly intoxication, assault with a deadly weapon, theft, and disorderly conduct. Locked up in the county jail in lieu of $5,000 bond, Cusimano has pleaded not guilty.
Yikes. He had a lot going on in that rap sheet.
I say throw the book at him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lemonade felony.
He's lucky that kid's mama didn't come out.
Right? He probably would have got beat to death.
No kidding. I pity the fool who manhandles one of my kids.
That's right. Well, we go from one theft to 17 of them in one day at one store.
What?
Yeah.
That's a bad day.
That is a bad day. We go to Linwood, Washington, where the Linwood Police Department says its officers arrested 17 shoplifters in one day, all at the same store.
So not the same shoplifter. 17 unique shoplifting encounters.
Yep. This happened on March 29th, where officers and detectives conducted a special retail theft emphasis at the Fred Meyer. That's an emphasis. Can you imagine being one of 17 that gets hauled in by the cops?
No, do they stick them all in the same cell together?
I got to think, yeah. Yeah, they all get run downtown. They're all sitting in the same cell. Man,
And the poor loss prevention people at that store. How exhausting.
Right? Like, how bad are you at your job that you can't catch 17 people in one day, but the cops can? Right?
Oh, my goodness.
That's got to be embarrassing. Do you think they were able to keep their job at the end of the day?
Oh, I hope so, but...
Like, sorry, boss, I know I missed 17 in one day, but I'll get them next time. There's always tomorrow. You know? Right. Detectives saw that say they saw countless people confidently shopping, loading up shopping carts and walking directly out of the store. So it's not unusual for them to just load up and walk out.
That's crazy.
At the Fred Meyer there. The department says the people made no effort to try and hide the items they were stealing. Over half the individuals arrested did not live in Linwood. So it's known as just a smash and grab type of store. Just come on in from out of town. Get yourself loaded up at the Fred Meyer.
I wonder if that's kind of like a normal day for them then. I mean, maybe not that many, that's a lot, but I wonder if they just have dozens of shoplifting episodes a week.
Probably.
Yeah.
The department warned, please do not come to Linwood to steal from our community. If you do, you will be held accountable to include arrest and possible jail time. In February, police arrested 14 people in a 6-hour special emphasis targeting retail theft at the same store. I think they have a problem, Jess. Just a small problem.
A little bit.
14 in one grab, 17 in another. I think that Fred Meyer has a reputation.
Dang. Is Fred Meyer like a grocery store? I'm not familiar.
I think it's kind of like don't quote me, but I think it's kind of like a variety store.
Okay. More like a Target-ish, but not as big.
Yeah. Yeah. That type of store. Yeah. All right. We go from one violent theft to another. We're going to dip into the world of fast food. See what I did there? Dip into the world of fast food because it does
like a French fry.
Like a French fry, because this does involve dip and a dipping sauce. What's your favorite dipping sauce at McDonald's? Do you have one?
I think honey mustard, probably. It's good on the nuggets and the French fries.
Oh, good choice. Good choice.
How about you?
I'm a little partial to the ranch. I love me some ranch.
Yeah, you're such a Minnesota guy. That's so Minnesota.
Although I do like a good honey sauce with the nuggets on occasion.
Ooh, yeah, that used to be my favorite.
Yeah. This poor teen right here. Actually, this isn't the poor teen. This is the poor aggressor right here. I'll show you a picture of the aggressor and explain to you why McDonald's is yet again in the news. We're going to Florida. I know, shock. Try not to show your dismay as I tell you that. A teenage customer was choked by a McDonald's worker after the girl walked behind the counter to take some ranch dipping sauce after not being helped by employees.
Choked?
Yeah, just kind of, like the claw, just kind of,
Yikes.
try to be more loud about the fact that you need something from employees, because sometimes the employees are a little overstressed.
Yeah, better to wait than to get choked out over your dipping sauce.
Yeah, some of them know lethal moves. Just saying. The 17-year-old was returning to the McDonald's lobby when 31-year-old Akina Sampson grabbed her arm. When the teen tried to break free, Sampson allegedly grabbed her neck and took the girl to the ground.
Dang.
Yeah, Akina. By the way, WWE called. You'll be going to the Florida training camp next week.
My money's on her.
That's right. You'll be at the Performance Center and training for WWE. We'll be calling her Akina the Killer. That'll be her new name. Sampson allegedly choked the victim again while they were on the floor of the St. Petersburg restaurant. Maybe they should call her Choke Out Akina. That would be a...
Yeah, this went on. Like, it wasn't just a...
No, it wasn't a quick...
Passing thing. It was...
Yeah. It wasn't just a quick, to get her to drop the ranch. It was... She was going for the jugular. Yeah.
Yeah.
A criminal complaint does not reveal how much ranch packets, if any, were secured after the victim crossed the McDonald's front counter threshold. My guess is none.
Yeah, 0.
Yeah, when they're cutting off your air supply, I don't think ranch packets are the first thing you're thinking of. Yeah. Probably help I can't breathe is the first thing you're thinking of. Yeah. Cops responding to the McDonald's Friday afternoon noted that the victim had visible injuries to her neck and left elbow, adding that the incident was captured on video. Sampson was charged with child abuse.
Right, because she's a kid.
I don't know, assault might be the first thing you would try. She was released from the county jail Friday evening after posting $2,500 bond and has pleaded not guilty to the felony count.
Oh my gosh.
What are you pleading in return? I was just guarding the ranch.
I was just doing my job.
Yeah, just doing my job. Ronald McDonald has said we need to guard this with our lives. It's ranch.
Oh. Do you think they teach that at Ronald McDonald training camp?
Yes, at McDonald's University. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Guard all dipping sauce with lethal force.
And then they teach them like karate.
Yeah, karate. McDonald's martial arts. MMA. That sounded like Curly from the Three Stooges.
Totally did.
A judge has ordered Sampson to have no contact with the victim and directed her to stay away from the area of offense, which will likely impact her tenure at McDonald's. So, you're now fired. Just saying, yeah. Sorry. Speaking of potentially fired from the job, we go now to, where are we going to? We're going to an area where a policeman is probably not doing the job he should be doing because even the dog disapproves. In fact, the dog tried to break up a potential interaction with this cop. The headline here, Jess, is he didn't do anything. Instant karma after a cop body slams a black man, then gets mauled by his own canine in a viral video.
His own dog?
Yeah, his own dog is like, oh, no, fam. I think we got to chew your ass out for this one. It's an unsettling coupling, one that harkens back to protests in Birmingham and elsewhere, it says here in this article, when police attacked civil rights activists. In each instance, there was at least one portly Southern cop accompanied by a weaponized German Shepherd. I'm just reading the article out of Atlanta Black Star, if you must know.
What, there was at least one portly
Not
Southern cop. Just
yeah,
one portly.
Yeah. This is coming from a fat guy reading the article, so there you go.
Oh, this is great.
The scary duo is seen in this resurfaced video, and I'll post it for you so you can watch it, as a cop tries to break up a group of spring break revelers in an unidentified beach town. The K-9 unit officer is first seen with dog by his side, yelling at the young adults in a parking lot as he used the German Shepherd to disperse the revelers. At one point, he appears to be arresting a young woman in a bikini. A young man tries to peacefully intervene, but the cop body slams him to the ground even though he held his hands up. There's some still photos here as well. The crowd is angered, screaming at the officer and insisting that the young man he tackled that he didn't do anything. The chaos seems to confuse the canine, who turned and bit his cop handler at that point. Oh my God, he's biting him, one of the onlookers exclaimed. He's biting his ass. The cop yells at the dog, but it takes the intervention of two other officers before the German Shepherd relents and heals. Oh boy. The K-9 unit officer is last seen backing away from the highly charged scene with the dog back at his side. Daily Mail reports it wasn't the only incident where cops using dogs to tame spring break crowds, or it wasn't the only one. In Panama City, video captured police unleashing at least one drug dog on the town's beach after a major gun bust turned up 75 illegal guns. Dozens of partygoers were seen on the video hurriedly running from the approaching canine. As you'd expect, the officer who got bit received little sympathy on social media. Somebody said, cop needs to be fired. Fur baby cop deserves a treat. And then also said, good boy. Now that's a well-trained dog, remarked another. The dog is the real one, protecting and serving.
Kind of. If he's attacking people who aren't really doing anything wrong.
Evidently, the dog sensed something was wrong and came to somebody's aid. Listen, if the dog's attacking you and you're the cop,
yeah,
the dog must know something.
They have a sense.
They do.
A sixth sense.
They do have a sense, Jess. All right, with that, it's time now for Not Safe for Work. In our Not Safe for Work portion of our program, we're going to get a little deep in the weeds here. So with that, if you've got kids that are listening, you need to earmuffs, kids. Earmuffs. Put your hands on your ears. Probably go in the closet or whatever it is you do. Go play with toys. Go do whatever. The adults need to talk. If you're at work, put in your earbuds. You don't want your boss listening to this. It may get you fired. We're going to go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Jess, it turns out the Germans do have a sense of humor after all, but it's a dark one.
I believe it.
Yeah. It turns out that discarded lifelike sex dolls are keeping the German police fooled.
What? They can't tell the difference between a sex doll and a real person?
No. And someone's littering the German countryside with sex dolls, and the German police think they're discarded bodies.
Oh, no. There's a serial killer on the loose, Tim.
That's right. But it's just sex dolls, Jess. That's all it is. They can't tell the difference. Picking up a twig on the ground next to a blackberry bush, the dog walker poked at the plastic bag and a burnt hand popped out. Whoops. He called the police in Rostock, the largest city in the German state of Mecklenburg. I believe this is, my German is horrible since 9th grade, Vorpommern. Yes. And the full machinery of a murder investigation swung into action. Members of the homicide unit and a forensic team set up floodlights and a 3D scanner to provide a precise recording of the grisly scene. A drone was launched and an undertaker was summoned. Oh boy, they really got into it.
Wow, an undertaker and everything.
Yes.
This is real.
Sir German Undertaker was summoned, yeah? The charred remains of a naked, unidentified woman spoke of a dark underbelly of German life in more ways than one. It took more than 5 hours for investigators to discover that the body was, in fact, that's right, Jess, 5 hours to discover, in fact, the body was a next-generation sex doll known as a real doll because they appear lifelike and do not require inflation. And we're not talking about the economic inflation.
That's amazing. I mean, because if it was charred even, wouldn't it be like melted? I feel like you would know even more that it's not real because of the fire damage.
Yeah, you would think you'd see bubbles or something on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good sex doll.
Yeah, it is. Its owners had apparently, thank you for noticing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. Spent a lot on that one. Its owner had apparently tried to burn the doll, then throw it away in the undergrowth. All police measures were immediately terminated, police said. The undertaker could fortunately be canceled. Don't tell him that. He's sensitive. He has feelings. The police would like to take this opportunity to ask people to dispose of their rubbish in the appropriate locations. Where is the appropriate place to throw your sex doll away in Germany? That's what I want to know.
That's a good question. But also, why was this person so intent on completely getting rid of it? Were they trying to hide their dirty deeds?
Good question, Jess.
They must have been.
I mean, isn't the life doll or real life doll or whatever it is, isn't it dishwasher safe?
I mean, they're so expensive. Why would you burn it?
Right.
Unless you live in your mom's basement and you were trying to hide it.
That's right. Or mom found it or was about to find it. Or she asked, honey, why do you have a girl in your closet? And you're like, there's no girl. And then you run out and burn her.
You set it on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. God, would you burn? Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. A police spokeswoman laughed and said, we can write this off as an exercise. Fortunately, we don't get this every day. Or do you? Maybe it's a crime on the rise. However, it does keep happening. There's been an increase in sex doll-related police call-outs in recent years because they've become so lifelike that they are mistaken for corpses when discarded by owners who are apparently too embarrassed to risk being spotted trying to fit them into recycling bins. That's how you get rid of them, Jess. Recycling bins.
They're recyclable. Come on, guys.
That's right. Bottles, cans, and sex dolls. That's how you get rid of them. So literally, the little cum dumpsters do go in the recycling dumpsters. See what I did there?
I don't want that recycling with all my other stuff, though. Don't they take the recycled stuff and like make new glass out of it or whatever? And then we drink it and we're essentially drinking out of old sex dolls.
Well, you might. I don't. No, see, I don't want to think about that either. You're supposed to be washing it in the dishwasher and then putting it in the dumpster. You don't do your business and then throw it in the dumpster.
Next time you go get a Tupperware, Tim, just know it could be like 1/4 sex doll. Ew.
On Monday, police were called when a life-size doll was found lying on a bench in the western city of Bingen. Last week, a body part reported to police in a field near Bad Kreuznach. I think I nailed that one.
That sounded really good.
Bad Kreuznach in the southwest turned out to be a silicone backside. That's the name of my new band, Silicone Backside. Yeah. In February in Hanover, the fire brigade recovered a doll floating on its back in a canal. It was just having a nice swim. That's all that was going on.
Yeah, just enjoying the day.
Yeah. In 2019, 30 members of the police, fire brigade, and ambulance service were involved in an operation to receive a body from the River Elbe, or Elbe at Krümmel, in northern Germany. It turned out to be a sex doll packed into a box with the feet poking out. From the shore, it had been impossible to distinguish it from a real woman. It's no joke. I think it kind of is. An operation.
I'm laughing.
Are you laughing? I'm glad you are. It's kind of a funny story. It's no joke, it says. An operation always poses some danger to rescue workers, said Heiko Brett of the local fire brigade, who tried to say all this without giggling. That's the story there. Sex dolls being tortured in Germany.
It's not funny, you guys.
Evidently, one of our listeners thinks it's funny because we got a related story from Tony.
Ooh, Tony. He always sends the good ones.
Tony sends us a story that says, sex toys and exploding cosmetics, anatomy of a hybrid war on the West.
That's the way to take them all out.
That's right. You know what'll get them, Jess? An exploding dildo. That's what'll get them. That's how we get them. That's how we win the war on terror, Jess. An exploding
when
dildo.
you least expect it.
That's right. Oh, boy, I'm horny. Boom! No, that's how you get them, Jess. That's how we win the war on terror.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know. This comes from Warsaw, from Poland. Fake cosmetics, massage pillows, and sex toys. Crude homemade explosives. A Russian known as Warrior, and a code word, Mary. That's the headline here. I'm about to jump into this. Are you intrigued yet?
I'm very intrigued, especially with the code word.
With the code word Mary?
Mary.
There's a virgin involved somewhere in here. These are among the key elements of a suspected Russian-run sabotage plot that led to 3 parcels being detonated at courier depots in Britain, Germany, and Poland last summer. Again, Germany works its way into here. A person with knowledge of the Polish investigation told Reuters. The pillows packed into the parcels with the cosmetics and sex toys contain hidden homemade incendiary devices made of a cocktail of chemicals, including highly reactive magnesium. According to the person familiar with the case who provided the most granular account yet of the alleged plot, the chemicals were ignited by pre-timed detonators adapted from cheap Chinese electronic gadgets used to track items like lost keys, with the effect enhanced by the tubes with what looked like cosmetics, but in fact contained a gel made of flammable compounds, including nitromethane, according to the source. The proceedings in this case concern criminal activities inspired by Russia's GRU, this person said, referring to Moscow's Foreign Military Intelligence Agency. Reuters is reporting the details of the investigation for the first time, drawing on the account provided by the source close to the Polish case, as well as interviews with more than a dozen European security officials. The findings provide a rare insight into how sabotage campaigns play out on the ground. European security chiefs made the parcel fires public in October, describing them as part of a hybrid war being waged by Russia to destabilize the functioning of countries that support Ukraine, involving tactics like arson and cyber attacks. Blow them up with a dildo. Why not? I just had to throw that in there to get us back to our humorous
I like
point.
it. I think it should be on a t-shirt. Blow them up with a dildo.
Blow them up with a dildo. They said the parcels, which caught alight in warehouses, causing fires but not hurting anyone, were a dry run, get it, for a future Russian plot to detonate similar packages in midair on cargo flights to the United States and Canada. With the war in Ukraine, these attacks have intensified. They became more frequent, more assertive, said Nico Popescu, Moldova's deputy prime minister and foreign secretary until earlier last year, and now distinguished policy fellow at the European Council of Foreign Relations think tank. Of course, this poses a risk to citizens across the European Union. The Kremlin rejected the accusation of Russia having a hand in the fires. We know nothing about it, spokesman Dmitry Peskov told Reuters. We do not rule out that this is just more fake news or manifestation of blind Russophobia. I bet you didn't know there was such a thing as Russophobia.
No, I like it though. I like the sound of it.
I think Russophobia was a wrestler in the WWE at one time. Pretty
really?
Sure. I think so, yeah. The Kremlin said European allegations of a Russian sabotage or hybrid campaign are wholly unsubstantiated. The GRU didn't respond to a request for comment. By the way, the package detonations took place on July 19th, 20th, and 21st in the British city of Birmingham, Leipzig in Germany, and near the Polish capital of Warsaw. So it happened in 3 different places that they blew up the dildos, just so you know.
Wow.
Yeah. Blow up the dildos! Operation Detonate the Dildo.
I think normally you have to pay extra for that feature on your dildo.
You
I don't know.
do. Yeah. Normally, if you want an explosive ending, you pay extra. So there's that. Most definitely. Okay, we have a disturbing story here. On our next story is disturbing. And then we have a palate cleanser. This is the last of the not safe for work stories. This is how deep the mental illness can run. Are you ready for this? Or
yes.
Is this woman telling the truth? This has to do with a married Illinois teacher who's 30 years old, saying she was accused of molesting a 15-year-old boy because she's good looking.
Oh, come on.
We're going to get deep with this one, Jess. First, let me show you the picture of the accused. You tell me exactly. You tell me. I'm trying to get in my Jesse Ventura character. You tell me, Jess, how good looking she is. You tell me.
Not good looking enough to get away with that.
Right. Yeah. I don't think the 15-year-old was chasing her. I'll tell you that right now. You tell me, Jess. You tell me. Married Illinois special education teacher is accused of molesting a 15-year-old student and told police that she's being set up by the teen and that she was targeted for being good looking. Right. 30-year-old Christina Formella, a teacher and soccer coach at Downers Grove South High School, insisted to cops that she's a good person, but that everybody comes after her because of her good looks. That according to documents obtained by WGN9. The sporty, dirty blonde denied having sex with the teenage student and said that he accused her of having an inappropriate relationship with him because she cared too much about him. Documents show. Somebody knows how to spin a tale. Right? I mean, yeah. She's just too good looking and he just wanted.
I mean, I hope they have some credible, evidence to support the boy's claim.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. We'll get into the story here. Formella, who married her college sweetheart in August of last year, allegedly sexually assaulted the boy before the start of the school day in December of 2023, according to DuPage County prosecutors. She claimed that the students had broken into her phone. Okay, get this. This is the story from her. Are you ready?
Oh, gosh.
You tell me how likely this is, Jess. Formella claims that the students had broken into her phone and used her number to send the inappropriate messages to her as a blackmail plot.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. She claimed that one day the boy grabbed her phone unattended, had entered her passcode, had sent the message to his phone, then deleted the message from her phone, and had saved it to his phone as blackmail. Now, keep in mind, she's a special ed teacher.
Yeah. That adds an extra layer of ick.
But this kid's a mastermind.
Yeah.
Just saying. The messages were discovered last month by the victim's mother after she bought him a new phone and linked it to his iCloud account, according to DuPage County prosecutors. By the way, here's a picture of her enjoying a nice glass of wine.
Okay. So they didn't come out because he was using them to blackmail her. They came out because his mom found them.
Yes.
Which makes it even less likely that he did it.
Right.
As she says he did it.
Yeah.
And she did look very pretty in that picture, but
yeah, in that one, yeah. Formella allegedly told the victim, "I love having sex with you," in messages reportedly sent in 2023 when she was 28. "I know, baby. I love it so much. It feels so good. It's so passionate. It's so intimate. It's so perfect," the boy reportedly responded to Formella. "I love you so, so much, Mama."
Yikes.
I
feel so bad for his mom.
I think they got a whole thing going on.
Oh.
The relationship continued until the student broke it off, according to prosecutors. The student was the one who didn't want it anymore. When the messages were discovered, the mother took her son down to Downers Grove Police Station and reported the alleged abuse. Formella was charged with 2 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse and 1 count of criminal sexual assault, and was released on the condition that she would not enter the school grounds or have contact with anyone under 18. She's also been placed on paid leave from her job. Students have been urged to come forward to police or the school if they saw anything dangerous or unusual, and authorities will take all reports seriously. Board of Education President Don Renner said on Monday in a statement to the board. Formella has denied the allegations against her and insisted that she never had sex with the student. No, she just slipped, tripped, and fell on his dick. It was an accident. It was a complete accident, Jess. That's the only thing that happened. She earned her teaching license in 2017, shortly after leaving Concordia University in Chicago, where she and her husband met as student athletes. He played baseball, she played soccer. Formella had been teaching at Downers Grove High since 2020. New body cam footage shows Formella breaking down in tears during her arrest on March 16th. According to a video published by the YouTube channel Ep42. That's a channel. I don't know why that makes me giggle, but Ep42. Huncho.
Weird.
She said, "I feel like I'm going to throw up," as she sobbed into her cuffed hands and pulled her knees up to her chest. Formella's next court appearance scheduled for April 14th. She probably feels like she's going to throw up because she got caught.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a bad feeling, but I don't think it was, a plot against you by that young boy. It sounds like he did something really bad. And why are we hearing so much of female teachers doing this lately? It's so disgusting.
Is it a self-confidence thing? Is it a forbidden fruit thing, or is it
like an insecurity?
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably different for each of them, right? Like what motivates people. They're predators for different reasons, I would think.
Yeah.
Probably some maybe some of them were abused themselves. I don't know, but it's so messed
That could
up.
be the cycle of abuse. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a cycle of abuse thing. They were abused, and to them, it's just natural. I hate to say it's just natural. That's not the words I want to use.
But it makes sense in their brain somewhere
Yeah.
because there was a miswiring, maybe from abuse.
Right. Right.
But I mean, there are probably others who are same reason as a man, power and control.
Yeah. That's where I wanted to go with it. Power and control.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
You pick on the weakest of the pack, maybe, or you pick on the one you feel like you need to mentor, and it's a misguided mentoring. You know what I mean? They pick the one that they feel like they need to give the most attention to, and that attention comes off in an inappropriate way.
And sometimes the prettiest people are the most insecure people.
Yeah.
I've found in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Our palate cleanser today comes in two parts, so to speak. I know I'm setting you up for this, Jess.
Oh, no.
The first one is innocent enough. Are you into comic books, Jess?
I like comic books. I wrote a graphic novel, which is like a fancy name for comic books. I've got 2 of those. So
There you
yeah, I
go.
like them.
There you go.
They're fun to write.
There you go. Well, we're going to go to the comic book store for the first one.
All right.
And it is crime related because sometimes you can solve your own crime at the comic book store, and some staffers from a comic book store in Castro Valley did just that. They tracked down the suspect that tried to rob their comic book store and also in a rash of Bay Area burglaries. They became their own hero.
Ooh, they became a superhero.
Yeah, here's what happened. A brazen thief who didn't try very hard to cover his tracks was apprehended by authorities with the help of a ragtag group of amateur detectives. It sounds like the plot of a new comic book series, but this is a true story of a pair of Castro Valley comic book store staff members turned sleuths. Crush Comics owner Josh Hunter and store manager Cole Sanders never thought they'd find themselves as real-life comic book vigilantes, but that's exactly what happened after the shop was burglarized in the early morning hours of March 22nd. When I got down here, I was like, okay, it's not as bad as it could be. I'm going to try to be really positive about this, said Hunter. The burglar cleared the wall where the most valuable comic books were displayed. Hunter thought they were gone for good until one of his employees spotted a very specific comic book for sale on eBay less than 12 hours after the burglary. Note to all those burglars out there who decide they're going to rob the comic book shop. Don't take the most expensive book on the wall. It's the most rare book on the wall. You're going to get got.
Yep.
Yeah. There you go. This is the one that really solved the case. The absolutely unique one-of-one sketch cover from our artist friend, Dan. When I saw that on eBay, I was like, I'm just going to buy that and see what happens. And we got the guy's name and address and everything, and there it was, said Hunter.
Wow, that's smart.
Yeah. From there, Hunter went on an Instagram page for someone with the same name and found a telling post. In it was a Lego Bandit figurine offering to buy, sell, or trade Lego sets in the East Bay. He also saw other photos which looked very similar to the mystery man in the hoodie on the shop surveillance video. We're putting it all together, Jess. The honorary detectives didn't stop there and contacted a competing shop in San Leandro that had also been broken into recently. I called them and I was like, hey, we found this eBay page. They look almost certainly like they stole some of our stuff. You should check too. And they got back to us and they're like, yes, there's like 10 of our books on there right now. And I was like, wow, okay, said Hunter. When they saw Lego items on the eBay page, they reached out to a toy shop in San Ramon. And they had recently lost a number of valuable sets to a shoplifter. She's like,
Oh,
yeah. She's like, do you think this is him? And she showed a picture of the guy that they had. And he wasn't masked in this one. And they based on the Google searches and stuff that we did. And we were like, this is probably the guy, said Hunter. So everybody's talking to everybody else. And they're like, you know what? We think we got our guy. Right? They turned the information over to the police. And just a couple of days later, another toy shop was hit. Okay. My wife and I are looking at each other and thinking the same thing. They broke the window, they got in, they stole a whole bunch of stuff and left. Do you think this could be the same guy? So I go to message them on Instagram. We already had a message from them saying, hey, we think it's the same guy, said Hunter. All right, we got corroborating statements from everybody, right?
Yeah.
The very next day, the Alameda County Sheriff's Department served a search warrant at the home of 29-year-old Norella Amiri of Livermore, where they said they found tens of thousands of dollars of comic books, collectibles, and Lego sets, the majority of which were returned to their respective stores. So they got their guy.
Awesome. Yeah. Hunter done hunted that guy.
Yeah, he did. Everybody is really appreciative and everybody's really cool. We now have a little text group chain of shop owners talking about it, said Hunter. Reflecting on the entire experience, the Castro Valley Avengers is what they're calling themselves, could only do one thing, quote another comic book superhero. Are you ready for the comic book superhero they quoted?
Yes.
Believe it or not, it's John Cena!
Yeah. Oh, yes.
They quoted Peacemaker. He said, what did Peacemaker say? Who knows why crazy men do the things they do? Yeah, they said laughing. They quoted John Cena. There you go. They said they now actually are thinking about publishing their own comic book collection based on the break-in and subsequent detective work. But they said they'd have to change it up a bit and make the villain a little harder to catch. Because this one was pretty easy. He was a stupid criminal doing dumb crimes.
Which is why we're talking about him today.
That's right. So
he should write a comic book, though. That's awesome.
It is. It is awesome. It was a bit, but kind of easy to solve, right? So how does a comic nerd celebrate that big victory, Jess?
I don't know, Tim. How?
Well, I'm going to tell you a little something about a syndrome called death grip syndrome. And it's actually real, and it can harm your penis. Yes, that is how a comic nerd celebrates, by celebrating with himself. That's the second part of our palate cleanser today.
My palate already doesn't feel cleansed anymore, Tim. It was so cleansed, and now it feels dirty and gross again. I was all happy. Comic book nerds saved the day, and now...
Well, they're still united, but they're
my.
United in a different way.
Okay. Lay it on me.
Well, I wouldn't if I had a death grip on it. We're still in not safe for work territory. I'm going to try to read this with a straight face. Masturbation isn't something any of us should be shy about, although I am right now. I'm turning red. But when the mood strikes, some of us seize it a little too lightly. That's why you got to get a good grip, Jess. To put it plainly, if you've got a penis, grabbing it too hard while pleasuring yourself could leave orgasms further out of reach. It's what's known in slang terms, Jess, as death grip syndrome, though there's actually no official medical name for the condition. Some credit sex columnist Dan Savage with coining the term back in the early 2000s, but it's also popped up in various Reddit threads over the years. Are you on Reddit by chance?
Yes,
I am. Have you seen this pop up in Reddit?
I have not, okay. But I'm going to look for it now.
I don't think you're searching hard enough. It even got a formal Urban Dictionary entry in 2010. So we're not talking about anything new here. I mean, new to us.
Been around for a while.
Yeah, the old DGS, the old death grip syndrome. I see I gave it an abbreviation. But we wouldn't put your physical health in the hands of public forums, so we had Dr. Lawrence Cunningham tell us exactly how real or not it is. So what is death grip syndrome? DGS refers to the phenomenon where habitual over-tight gripping of your old member during masturbation can lead to decreased sensitivity and difficulty achieving, well, you know, a little climax through other forms of sexual activity, Dr. Cunningham told Metro. By the way, the UK Care Guide doctor believes many men are unaware of their masturbation habits and how it could impact their sexual health. And let's face it, None of us want any lingering problems just because we went a little too hard. That's what it says.
You want to grab it so hard? Be nice to it.
Right. Right? It's a sensitive area. You don't choke up on that thing like you're swinging for the fence. Right? I mean, it's
Gentle hands.
Easy. Death grip syndrome may sound alarming, but Dr. Cunningham explains it doesn't do any physical damage to little Elvis in the traditional sense. The issue, he says, is when it comes to, sexual stimulation down there. The persistent use of a tight grip can condition the nerves and tissues to respond only to the specific form of stimulation. So in other words, you'd have to find a partner that has a death grip tighter than King Kong. I just wanted to deliver that line. This can make it challenging to experience pleasure and achieve orgasm through more typical forms of sexual activity. I think you're getting the idea of where this article is going. So what are the symptoms of DGS? You may ask yourself. Or I'm the only one asking and you all don't care, one or the other. It goes without saying that this is going to decrease your levels of satisfaction. According to men's health websites HIMSS and medical advisor Michael Bohl, other symptoms include pain in your pal and anorgasmia. Isn't that a band?
Oh.
Anorgasmia?
I mean, it needs to be.
It needs to be a band name, anorgasmia. The latter is a condition, anorgasmia, by the way, where you experience delayed, infrequent, or absent orgasms. In other words, it's a form of sexual dysfunction. Yeah, so lighten up, fellas. Jeez. Years of consistent, tight grip, usually doesn't lead to complete anorgasmia, but it certainly can add to delayed takeoff, so to speak, or reduced pleasure. So is it reversible? That's what they want to know. By the way, Jess, you got to look at the picture of is it reversible? Take a look at that.
Oh, gosh. Come on. It's a cactus all limp and sad.
It's a sad cactus. By the way, Sad Cactus is going to be my lead singer name of Anorgasmia. I'm going to be the Sad Cactus. The doc says he's seen a number of men who experience the issues, and it's common enough. And basically, if you're experiencing it, don't be stressed because it's generally treatable and often reversible. So there you go. But that's how a comic nerd celebrates breaking up a
I'm going to lay that on the comic nerds if they ever do.
What's that?
But that's just a guy thing. It's not a comic nerd. That's any guy.
Well, but I'm just saying.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I just see the comic nerds being kinder to themselves. Lighting a candle.
Lighting a candle?
Setting up their figurines.
What?
Getting out their favorite superhero comic book.
You've obviously never dated a comic nerd before.
All right, I digress.
Yeah.
And now I just feel dirty again.
Yeah, I was going to
Let's end the show.
All right, let's end the show.
Go take a shower.
All right, what's new over there in your world?
Oh, gosh. Same old, same old. I did just finish a book this weekend, though, so I'm super excited. I think I'm going to send it to my publisher tonight. So
Good.
I'm going to celebrate and take a little break. But yeah, if you guys
Easy
want
on that grip when you celebrate, by the way.
Yeah, I'll be...
All right.
I won't celebrate like a comic nerd, I promise.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but if you guys want to connect, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok still, I think it's still alive, right?
As far as I know, I keep tagging you on TikTok, so it should be still alive.
I think it's still there. Yeah, that's it. Nothing too exciting.
Good. All right. Tomorrow on the big show, Supernatural News, Mally Fox is in. Thursday. Speaking of death grip and comic nerds, we're going to explore the bathroom.
Oh. Where are we now?
Yes, we are. But not that way.
Is it a haunted bathroom?
Yes, it is.
Yay!
Yeah. So that's coming up on Thursday.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a good tease.
There you go. So that's what's coming up this week on Darkness Radio. All right, that'll do it for today. Thank you so much, folks, for tuning in to True Crime Tuesday. Again, the Apple app. Check it out. If you haven't updated it, download it for your Apple device. The YouTube channel. Check it out, the original Darkness Radio. And the store, darknessradioshow.com. That's all I got for today. We'll see you tomorrow for Supernatural News. For Jessica Freeberg, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for tuning in to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday.